Chapter 31 True Dragon Bloodline. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ever since Xuanhuanglong taught Guan how to practice swordsmanship, Xuanhuanglong would stare at him with resentful eyes every time they met, making him very uncomfortable. Fortunately, with Feiye around, Xuanhuanglong didn't dare to pester him. The days passed, and monks passed over the Xian Valley every day. Every time someone passes by, Guan will use his lifespan to explore their realm. He even captures the existence of the nascent soul realm, but he can't tell which sect the other person comes from. As spring passes and summer comes, Guan turns 28. Since reaching the 9th level of the nascent soul realm, his daily plans have been suspended. He is afraid of wasting his lifespan and is preparing to use his huge lifespan to break through later. In addition to hard work, he also believes in metaphysics. The hot summer is coming. In the mountain forest, Guan was lying under a tree reading a book. Xuanhuanglong was directing Tangyu, Su Han, and Zhenqin to weed, while Taixuan and Yilan were practicing in the valley. Tangyu wiped the sweat from his forehead and glanced at the Qingxia travel notes in Guan's hand, his eyes full of curiosity. What kind of book is that? The biggest secret in the valley is what is recorded in Qingxia's travel notes. The three disciples also wanted to read it, but unfortunately, the entire set of Qingxia's travel notes was secretly kept by Guan, and they couldn't find it in the library. A big white mouse suddenly jumped out of the grass and ran all the way into Guan's arms. It was the white spirit mouse. Guan noticed something in its mouth and couldn't help but sit up straight. He saw it spit out an egg as big as an egg. The eggshell was bluish-white with wavy brown lines on the surface. He could feel the spiritual energy fluctuations inside. Is this a monster egg? Guan had encountered monster eggs in the outer gate city before. The prices varied, and the highest price was an astronomical sum. His scalp went numb just looking at them. When Xuanhuanglong and others didn't notice, he immediately threw the monster egg into the storage bag. The white spirit rat raised its head with a proud look. Guan was delighted to see it, and he hugged it and started stroking it wildly. After weeding the weeds, Xuanhuanglong and the other two started planting seeds. After everything was done, they walked back to Xian Valley together. Tangyu walked beside Guan and asked him about some of the difficulties of Kenfeng kick. He didn't like swords, so he was the only one among the three disciples who practiced Kenfeng kick assiduously. Guan patiently gave instructions while holding the white spirit rat tightly in his hand, preventing it from escaping. Back in Xian Valley, Feiye, who went to the outer gate in the morning, has returned, but Xuanhuanglong has not come back, which is a good thing for Guan. Feiye came to Guan and said, "The World Outer Sect Conference has ended. Next is the time for exchanges between various religions. During this time, there will be disciples patrolling nearby. It's time for me to go back." When Guan heard this, he immediately showed a look of reluctance and said, "Then I won't keep you. You have immortality in your heart. I can't delay you. If you want to come here in the future, you can come back at any time. As long as I am still alive, I will always wait here." Feiye nodded, and then he pulled Guan into the attic. After closing the door, he took out 3 white jade bottles from the storage bag, placed them on the table, and said, "These 3 bottles of elixirs are Foundation Establishment Pill, Foundation Establishment Pill. Keep these top-grade spiritual energy pills and marrow cleansing pills, and don't expose them easily. Especially the Foundation Building Pill, you must keep one for yourself. Don't trust your disciples too much. There are not a few people who kill their masters for the pills. People's hearts it will change." Guan was stunned, and quickly waved his hands and said, "This is not possible. Even if I become the Valley Master for 100 years, I still don't have the Spirit Stone to return. What else? You are my junior brother, and I will come back to disturb you in the future. If you don't accept it, I will never come back again." Feiye glared and said in a serious tone. When Guan heard this, he could only reluctantly accept it. He was very moved. He cared more about Feiye's feelings for him than the valuable pills. Feiye continued, "Last night there was a battle between demons and cultivators 100 miles away, and several people were killed or injured. They are all geniuses from various sections. Their deaths will definitely trigger investigations by various sections. You'd better stay away from the valley these days." Guan nodded and was about to say something when Feiye turned and left. he did not go through the main entrance, but jumped out of the window. He jumped on his sword, swept up the mountain, and disappeared without a trace. Guan looked back at the 3 bottles of elixirs on the table and remained silent for a long time. Finally, he sighed, waved his sleeves and put the 3 bottles of elixirs into his storage bag. Late at night, Guan came to Yuanying cave and walked all the way to the Tsang tree. Jiang Qiong was still meditating in front of the alchemy furnace. Her aura was getting stronger and stronger, and she was not far from the 9th level of the alchemy realm. Guan was happy for her, finally leaving. "My dear disciple son, you haven't been here for a long time. I thought you had almost forgotten me." Jiang Qiong's voice sounded. Guan stepped forward and saluted, and said helplessly, "Master, could you not add the word good to your words? My disciple really can't bear it. A demonic cultivator is a demonic cultivator, and his words are not serious at all." Jiang Qiong pursed her lips and smiled but did not answer. Guan took out the monster egg from the storage bag, brought it to Jiang Qiong, and asked, "Master, what kind of monster is this?" Hearing this, Jiang Qiong opened her eyes. She casually glanced at the monster egg in his hand. She didn't care at first. As soon as she looked away, she suddenly realized something and opened her beautiful eyes suddenly. She turned around and snatched the egg from Guan's hand. She admired it carefully. Her eyes seemed to be able to penetrate the eggshell. Seeing this, Guan was secretly nervous. Sure enough, this thing is not simple. When he heard Liya say that there was a demon cultivator fighting last night, he suspected that the white spirit rat was picked up from the fighting place. He has lived in this area for so many years, not even a monster egg, let alone a monster egg. It's really the holy beast of the ancient house sect. Jiang Qiong murmured to himself, "Holy beast." Guan's eyelids twitched wildly, and he suddenly wanted to strangle the white rat to death. This was not to cause trouble for him. Jiang Qiong handed the monster egg to Guan and said, "This is Xuanhuanglong. There are few monsters with true dragon blood in the world. It can grow to a 9th level monster. It has great potential and is fierce and powerful. It is revered as a sacred beast by the ancient house sect. Cultivate it well. Xuanhuanglong will only serve one master in his life and will be gentle to his master. To others, it is extremely fierce. Once the master of Xuanhuanglong dies, Xuanhuanglong will go crazy and slaughter the people." Guan heard it and hurriedly said, "It's so powerful, so give it to the master. The master also needs help in the world of cultivation." "Really?" Jiang Qiong asked with a smile. Guan nodded, his expression sincere. Seeing this, Jiang Qiong's face eased and he was moved. Thinking carefully, this kid has been respectful to her since they met. He never neglects what she ordered. Maybe what he said now is not false. Jiang Qiong pretended to be dead for 70 years. She was betrayed and ended up in this situation. She hated many people over the years. When she first met Guan, she was also full of vigilance, so she tried to test him after she recovered. Jiang Qiong forced the Xuanhuanglong egg into Guan's hand. When their hands touched, he felt a little cold. "Don't refuse. It just so happens that the Tsangting tree needs a strong force to guard it. You can keep Xuanhuanglong here, so you won't be afraid of being exposed." Jiang Qiong said seriously. Guan thought it made sense. This can also prevent people from stealing grass and flowers in the future. Guan sighed and said, "Okay." Jiang Qiong began to tell him the legend and habits of Xuanhuanglong, so that he could learn more. Guan became more and more excited as he listened, and he looked forward to Xuanhuanglong. Finally, he left the Xuanhuanglong egg under the Tsangting tree and let Jiang Qiong raise it. In the next month, fewer and fewer monks passed by Xian Valley. Finally, after 3 consecutive days of no monks coming and going, Guan left the valley. He still had a part-time job to do, which was also a considerable income from life, and he couldn't miss it. Compared with fighting and killing, Guan preferred to earn life steadily and steadily. At noon, he first went to Chen Li's cave. Chen Li was not in the cave. He took care of the herbs in an incense stick of time and then left. Next was Li Xuanyu's cave. Li Xuanyu was not in the cave either, so Guan started to get busy. As expected of a princess, Li Xuanyu recently planted a batch of 5th level herbs, which made Guan very much looking forward to it. For the 5th level herbs to mature, it would take at least 5 years, or even more than 10 years. Fortunately, Guan could wait. However, When Guan was about to finish, Li Xuanyu actually came back. "Hello, Senior Li." Guan hurried forward and saluted with his fists. Li Xuanyu was dressed in white, still so cold and holy, but Guan could feel her breath was unstable, injured again, so aggressive. Li Xuanyu whispered, "You and Liya are brothers, no need to call me senior, you can call me senior sister." Guan had to do as he was told and said senior sister. Li Xuanyu glanced at the cave and said, "You did a good job. Do you need me to help you with this job? If I ask, those employers will give me some face and will not treat you unfairly." "Yes, thank you, senior sister Li," Guan responded quickly. He was still waiting to save 100,000 years of life as soon as possible and impact the realm above the nascent soul realm, so he would naturally not refuse. Li Xuanyu nodded and said, "Come back in a month." Guan saluted and then left. After he left, Li Xuanyu walked to the bed and began to practice to heal her wounds. Her face quickly turned pale and bloodless, and then she spit out a mouthful of black blood and spilled it on the ground. Outside the cave, Guan felt her aura suddenly riot, probably because of the outbreak of injuries, but he did not stop. He did not know how to heal his injuries, and he did not want to be involved too much with Li Xuanyu. After the World Outer Sect conference ended, the time in Xian Valley passed as fast as before. When Guan saw Li Xuanyu again, her injuries had recovered. For the most part. Under her leadership, he went to meet 5 outer disciples. So far, he helped to take care of the caves of 7 outer disciples at the same time. Because the situation of each cave was different, he had to leave the valley every 3 or 4 days. In order to make it easier to travel, he raised his surface cultivation to the 6th level of Qi training. Every time he went out, he used the sword control technique. After all, the spiritual power of the 5th level of Qi training was not enough for him to go back and forth within a day. He did not take out the Qianshu sword, but stepped on an ordinary flying sword, which was an ordinary magic weapon exchanged from the outer sect to conceal his tracks. Summer went and autumn came, and autumn leaves flew, covering Xian Valley. After the autumn colors, the winter snow came, and Xian Valley was plunged into whiteness again. One day, Guan was writing in the attic. He had read too many Qingxia travel notes, and he also wanted to write one. It happened that he went to the outer sect last time to find out that writing a book could earn spiritual stones, but the review was very strict. Guan had the background of an earthling reincarnation, so he decided to shock Taixuan sect a little bit. If he earned more spiritual stones, he could buy more seeds. He was writing vigorously, and suddenly felt something. Frowning, the sky outside the window darkened, and rolling thunderclouds rolled in from the horizon, and a terrible power of heaven enveloped the world, mountains, and forests. Thanks to Jiqiu Dazizi for rewarding 333 Qijin coins. Book friend 2024040707220137319 for rewarding 300 Qijin coins. Aurora Hayes for rewarding 188 Qijin coins. Book friend 20221130195350296 for rewarding 100 Qijin coins. Book friend 2022120221491045004. Rewarding 100 Qijin coins, and Vlen for rewarding 100 Qijin coins. As always, please read, recommend, and vote for the monthly ticket. Guess what book Guan will write. Chapter 32, Sword Duel on a Snowy Night, Yuanying vs. Yuanying. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Is this a thunder tribulation? Guan looked at the thunderclouds outside the window. His brows gradually relaxed, and curiosity appeared on his face. He was not worried, because he felt that Tianwei was far away from Xuangu, Tangyu, Su Han, and Zhenqin, who were cleaning the snow in the park, turned their heads to look. Yilan, who was meditating in the forest, also opened her eyes. Xiaochuan walked out of his house and looked at the rolling thunderclouds in the sky. Wu Xian was meditating on the top of the mountain. The flying snow could not cover his figure. He looked at the horizon with a frown. Such a strong sword intent. Wu Xian muttered to himself. Although his cultivation was low, he came from Qianxiu Pavilion and had a lot of experience. The entire sky was quickly covered by thunderclouds, like an endless ocean, stirring up storms. The snow forest on the ground fell into darkness. The wind between heaven and earth became stronger and stronger, causing the forest to sway and shake off pieces of snow. Guan was distracted by the might of heaven and had no intention of writing. He got up and went downstairs, calling on his disciples to look after the various parks. An hour later, several cultivators flew over Xian Valley, heading towards the direction where the might of heaven came from, and disappeared in the vast snow. This scene made the disciples in the valley even more nervous, not knowing what had happened, until near dusk, a thunderous sound resounded through the world. Guan stood on the top of the mountain and saw lightning and thunder in the sky from a distance. The lightning and thunder intertwined to a certain point on the ground, forming a huge fan shape, which was extremely spectacular. The lightning flashed on his face and his black robe swayed in the wind. The thunder tribulation is so terrible, no wonder I failed so many times in my evolutionary practice. Guan sighed in his heart, and the resentment he had suppressed for many years finally dissipated. Although the evolutionary practice consumes more life than reality, it is safer. Looking back at his achievements, at the age of 28, can Taixuan find a second person who is at the 9th level of the nascent soul realm? Then, he turned and went down the mountain, ready to continue writing books. That night, thunder roared, making it impossible for everyone in Medicine Valley to practice peacefully. At noon the next day, the thunder continued, and the wind between heaven and earth became stronger and stronger, as if a blizzard was about to come. Guan led his disciples out to look after the herbs from time to time. After 3 days and 3 nights, the thunder finally stopped. As the thunderclouds in the sky cleared, the sun finally shone, which made the disciples of Xian Valley breathe a sigh of relief. However, they were not happy for half a day, and a fierce pressure enveloped the world, making them feel depressed in their chests and frightened. In the attic, Guan put down the brush in his hand, looked out the window, and frowned. He felt a strong sword intent coming from the horizon, and it was difficult to judge how far away it was for the time being. What is he doing? Guan was confused. He started to comprehend the sword just after passing the thunder tribulation. So hard. Guan could only pray that the other party would not affect his Medicine Valley. Although the other party's sword intent was strong, he secretly compared it and felt that it was not as good as his Taixuan Jingshan sword. After all, he spent 2,000 years of his life to smash the Taixuan Jingshan sword. How many people in this world can live for 2,000 years? Late at night, Yuanying Cave Heaven. Guan came to visit Jiang Qiong. He walked all the way to the Tsangting tree and raised his hand to salute Jiang Qiong. Don't come in again for a while, so as not to be discovered by Ziwei. Jiang Qiong said without opening his eyes. Ziwei. Guan remembered that this person was Zuolin's father. When the father and son flew over Xian Valley, he threw a lifespan probe at the two of them. Ziwei's previous cultivation level was exactly the 9th level of the Jindan realm. After the tribulation, he was a cultivator in the Yuanying realm. Guan thought quickly in his heart, and asked nervously, "Who is Ziwei?" "It's the man who went through the thunder tribulation these days. I heard from your master that he has made a name for himself as the Zhanghu sword maniac." Jiang Qiong replied, "Zhanghu sword maniac?" Guan asked curiously, "Master, are you an old acquaintance of him?" "Yes, it is true that we are old acquaintances. Back then, he was overconfident and wanted to pursue me as a Taoist partner. I humiliated him severely, making him a joke in the inner sect. Since then, he has been concentrating on practicing swordsmanship and staying indoors. I didn't see him again until I was injured and faked my death." When Jiang Qiong said this, she opened her eyes, looked at Guan, and said with a joking smile, "My dear disciple, don't be sentimental in the future, it's easy to suffer." Guan replied, "Thank you for your teachings, master. I will remember it." Then, Jiang Qiong asked Guan to sit down and began to instruct him on the Gu techniques of Wangu Xian Gong. Wangu Xian Gong has both the Qi gathering technique and many Gu techniques, which require a lot of time to study. Guan left after staying in Baiyang Dongtian for 2 hours. 3 days later, in the early morning, Guan was leading his disciples to practice exercises. They stood on the snow, the cold wind was biting, but they were still wearing thin clothes. Swoosh! A sound of breaking through the air came, startling everyone to turn their heads and see that the eastern mountain peak was hit by a sword energy, and 2 big trees on the hillside were cut off and fell down with a bang. rolling down the hillside all the way, and were finally blocked by a row of trees, and dust and snow flew like white mist. Looking up, there was a 2-meter-long crack on the mountain wall, as if it was cut by a huge sword, which was very spectacular. Xuanhuan frowned and said, "This is not the first time. If it continues like this, it will harm us sooner or later." The other disciples were also worried, and their exercises slowed down. Wu Xin sighed and said, "It takes a few days or decades for a sword cultivator to comprehend the sword. God knows how long it will take for that person to comprehend the sword." Guan rarely smiled, and his face was gloomy. He was worried about the medicinal herbs in Xian Valley. Yesterday, he went to the outer gate to report the matter to the pill hall. As a result, he was given the option to temporarily move to the outer gate city to avoid this year's harvest, but the pill hall would not bear any losses to Xian Valley. The herbs in Xian Valley are all Guan's treasures. How could he be willing to give up? Once the Xian Valley collapses, the 8 scenery cave heaven might be exposed. No. We must find a way. Guan's eyes flickered. He could swallow his anger for life, but he could fight for herbs. Okay, hurry up and practice, and then practice separately. Wait 2 more days. If that person hasn't left yet, we will go to the outer door to avoid it. Guan said. As soon as these words came out, all the disciples cheered up. They were also worried that the Xian Valley would collapse, so they had long wanted to go out and take shelter. The winter days passed quickly. Night gradually fell. On the top of a mountain, Ziwei, who was dressed in grey robes, was sitting in meditation. There were 5 swords standing in front of him. The shapes of the swords were different, and even the width of the sword blades were also different. At night, the sky was filled with flying snow. As soon as the snow fell on him, it melted quickly and turned into wisps of white mist, which made his whole aura look even more powerful. On a mountain peak 100 feet away, Xuanhuanglong was meditating on the edge of the cliff. There were 3 big flags hanging around him. The flags were flying. When the sword energy came over, an invisible air shield offset the sword energy, making him unharmed. A little bit of damage, although he was not injured. The roar of the sword energy hitting the formation still woke Xuanhuanglong up. He raised his eyes to look at his father, his eyebrows furrowed, and his eyes showed envy. They say dragons beget dragons and phoenixes beget phoenixes, so why didn't he inherit his father's knowledge of swordsmanship? Feeling his father's powerful sword intention, Xuanhuanglong was fascinated. Even though he has excellent spiritual abilities and can absorb energy much faster than his peers, he just wants to become a powerful swordsman like his father. If it weren't for his desire to master the sword, his cultivation level would be far beyond the 2nd level of the Foundation establishment realm. Well, Xuanhuanglong sighed, and then prepared to continue to master the sword. He didn't believe it. He really couldn't master the sword. He was about to close his eyes when he suddenly saw his father standing up, which made him stunned. It's over. Ziwei stood on the top of the mountain, facing Xuanhuanglong's direction, but his eyes were higher, staring at a higher mountain in the distance. It was dark and there was no one in sight, but he could feel the sword's intention. Lock yourself in. The 5 swords in front of him began to tremble, as if facing a powerful enemy. Xuanhuanglong on the opposite side stood up and asked loudly, "Father, what's wrong? Did you succeed?" Ziwei did not answer him, but asked, "I wonder which fellow Taoist is coming. Why don't you show up?" 10 miles away, Guan, dressed in white, stood on the top of the mountain. He wore a wooden mask on his face. The spiritual power under the mask covered his face to avoid detection by divine consciousness. His white clothes fluttered, blending into the snow behind him. His right hand was playing with a leaf, and there was a trace of sword energy lingering on the leaf. Looking from a high place, he could see Ziwei and Xuanhuanglong. Before emitting the sword intent, he had already explored the area within 100 miles and made sure that there were no other powerful monks before he came to the top of the mountain. Guan doesn't like killing innocent people indiscriminately, but Ziwei endangers his medicine valley and must be expelled. If you're to blame, you just picked the wrong place. Guan murmured to himself. He was already activating his skills and injecting spiritual power into the leaves. At the same time, when Xuanhuanglong heard his father's words, he turned around quickly. However, His cultivation at the Foundation establishment realm was not enough to see people 10 miles away. What's more, it was still dark at night, and the flying snow in the sky hindered his sight. He couldn't help but become nervous because he couldn't see who was coming. Ziwei felt that the opponent's sword intent was increasing, and he knew that this battle could no longer be avoided. Demon spies? Or, are they one of them? Ziwei's eyes flashed, and he held a sword in front of him with his right hand. The sword was slender and had a red blade. As he held it, the blade ignited with flames, becoming the brightest thing in the night sky. He drew his sword and drew it in the air, setting off a wave of fire that hung across the night sky. Under the cold weather, he actually wants to use the flame-devouring sword technique. It seems that his sword mastery in the past few days has greatly improved my father's sword skills. Xuanhuanglong turned his head and saw the sword fire in his father's hand, with a look of admiration on his face. No matter who comes, he believes that his father will not be defeated. Since fellow Taoist refuses to speak, I can only think that fellow Taoist wants to destroy my enlightenment. Then let this ice and snow witness whose sword intention is stronger. Ziwei's cold voice echoed between heaven and earth. As soon as he finished speaking, a soaring sword intent erupted from his body. The mountain peak he was on trembled violently. The snow collapsed, and the mountain where Xuanhuanglong was also shook. 10 miles away. Chatty. Guan whispered to himself, his voice was so low that only he could hear it. As soon as he finished speaking, he threw the leaves in his hand violently. What flew out seemed not to be a leaf, but a divine sword that penetrated time and space. Chapter 33 Alarming the Outer Sect, Conferred Godhood. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Under the dim snowy night, the sword intention of Ziwei formed a shocking and domineering air column, stirring up the wind and snow, connecting the sky and the mountains. The scorching flames rose from the air column, turning into a fire dragon and rising up. Xuanhuanglong was dumbfounded. He didn't expect that his father's flame-devouring swordsmanship could reach such a level. He had never heard of it. Boom. A huge roar suddenly came from behind Xuanhuanglong, like a thunderbolt. He was so startled that he subconsciously turned around. Before his face could be completely turned away, a bright sword light shone on his face, and his eyes stared. From the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of a bright sword light coming from the dim sky. The sword light was so bright that it could not be described in words. The flying snow in the sky was hit by the sword light, forming a huge air wave, as if the entire night sky was about to be penetrated by it. This scene shocked Xuanhuanglong deeply. Xuanhuanglong's mind went blank and he had no time to think about it. The bright sword light cut through the night sky and flew past his head. The strong wind caused by it caused the formation around him to be instantly activated. An air shield appeared around him, fluctuating violently and threatening to break at any time. Under Xuanhuanglong's gaze, the bright sword light collided with Ziwei's sword intent with an overwhelming and unstoppable momentum. Ziwei's reaction was faster than Xuanhuanglong's, but no matter how fast he was, he couldn't match his opponent's speed. He had no time to use his sword skills and could only rely on his own sword power to resist. Boom! The terrifying pillar of air that enveloped him was directly scattered. The long red flame dragon disappeared in an instant, and the sword intention of Ziwei was forcibly defeated. His robe was torn open and blood burst out from his body, his eyes widened, and a leaf was reflected in his pupils. How can it be? Such thoughts flashed through Ziwei's mind. He didn't even have time to be afraid. The leaf pierced his shoulder. The terrifying sword energy exploded, forcing him to fly backwards. It penetrated mountains one after another along the way, and finally smashed into the forest 10 miles away. A channel was shot out of the night sky, and the surrounding flying snow turned into mist as it approached, hanging among the mountains, which was extremely spectacular. On the top of the mountain, Xuanhuanglong stood in a formation and looked in disbelief in the direction where his father disappeared. He then collapsed on his knees, not daring to accept what he saw. His invincible father was defeated, and he was defeated without any resistance. 10 miles away, on the top of the mountain, Guan kept waving, the cold wind carrying the flying snow making his white clothes flutter violently, and his eyes under the mask were so calm. How can your hundreds of years of Taoism compete with my investment of 2,000 years of life? Guan thought in his mind that he had shown mercy and was aiming not at Ziwei Jian's head, but at his shoulders. He turned around and left, disappearing into the vast snow as if he had never been there. In the early morning, Guan led his disciples to practice as usual. Chen Qin twisted her waist, looked at the sky, and said, "The snow seems to be lighter today." Wu Xian looked into the distance and said, "Not only has the snow faded, but the powerful sword intention has also disappeared." As soon as these words came out, the other disciples suddenly became excited. "Has that person left already?" "It's possible. It said that to master swordsmanship, you have to find a place with beautiful mountains and rivers to appreciate nature. Our place is not a blessed place. Don't take it lightly. What if he's just taking a nap? Have you forgotten about the thunder tribulation a few days ago? A great monk at that level needs to take a nap." Listening to their argument, Guan couldn't help laughing. He gave a fake cough and said, "Be serious about your exercises. We'll find out later if that senior leaves. I hope no one will come nearby to overcome tribulations and learn swordsmanship in the future. If he accidentally strikes too hard, the scene will not look good." In the next 2 days, there was no more sword intent covering the world. Now Xuangu disciples could be sure that the other party had left. At this point, Xuangu returned to its usual rhythm of life. The disciples were used to seeing monks occasionally flying over the Xian Valley. Only Guan knew that those people might be investigating Ziwei Jian's injury because he found out that a monk possessed the 6th level of nascent soul realm. At night, after a few days apart, Guan came to Yuanying cave to visit Jiang Qiong. After saluting, Guan said, "Senior Ziwei Jian seems to have left." Jiang Qiong was not practicing any martial arts but was refining elixirs. She stared at the flames under the elixir furnace and said, "It's not that he is leaving. He is either dead or injured now." "What? Why do you say that?" Guan asked, pretending to be shocked. He even added, "He is a great monk in the nascent soul realm." Jiang Qiong rolled her eyes at him and said angrily, "So what about the nascent soul realm? There are realms above the nascent soul realm. There were 2 powerful sword intents fighting in the past few days, and one of them far surpassed Ziwei Jian's sword intent. And the battle ended in an instant, which shows that the opponent's strength is far superior to Ziwei Jian." When Guan heard this, he felt secretly happy. On the surface, he frowned and said hesitantly, "Is Xian Valley in danger?" "Don't worry, it's been a few days. Do you want to step on the ants on the roadside when you see them?" Jiang Qiong looked at the alchemy furnace again and said softly. She seemed calm, but in fact she was filled with a sense of urgency. She realizes that she may have lost touch with the world of immortality. 70 years is enough time to change dynasties. You must know that it only took her 40 years to reach the realm of pill formation. Who knows what the world of immortality is like today? In the future, if you want to break through the tribulation, you must be careful. Don't imitate Ziwei Jian. He may think that no one dares to interfere with him, but as everyone knows, the internal fighting in Taixuan Sect is very fierce. Jiang Qiong said quietly. Guan asked in surprise, "You mean the person who attacked Ziwei Jian was a Taixuan Sect cultivator?" Of course, great cultivators from other sects dare not rush into Taixuan Sect, and the other party disappeared very quickly, and there was no second battle. He can only be a Taixuan Sect person. Jiang Qiong nodded. "You really guessed it right." After Guan attacked last night, he quickly left the scene. As soon as he arrived at Xian Valley, he felt several powerful divine consciousnesses sweeping over, which frightened him into a cold sweat. Fortunately, his dragon power divine Yuanying was strong enough. Jiang Qiong obviously had a lot of feelings, and she began to teach Guan how to walk in the world of immortal cultivation in the future. After chatting for a while, Guan got rid of her and went to see the Haolong egg. The Haolong egg was placed under a tree by Jiang Qiong, surrounded by hay, and under the hay were many talisman papers with Jiang Qiong spells painted on them to help the Haolong egg absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth better. I wonder what Haolong looks like when he is born. Guan has already begun to imagine the scene of riding a real dragon and traveling in the human world. The news that Ziwei Jian was seriously injured had a greater impact than Guan expected. Even after more than half a month, when he came to the outer gate, he often heard people mention this along the way. In the past, it was rare to hear news about Yuanying realm cultivators in the outer gate, but now the whole city is talking about Ziwei, perhaps because Ziwei had just passed the tribulation. Before the tribulation, Ziwei was an elder of the outer gate, and his strength was among the top in the outer gate. Guan followed Zhu Qinglu, the elder of the Pill Hall, to the outer gate's library. The library manages all the outer gate's book buildings, including the local scripture pavilions, any books that flow into the Taixuan gate, such as the secret manuals of martial arts, the books of side doors, the travel notes of strange stories, etc., must be registered in the library. Little brother, the idea of writing a book is good, I support you very much. If it can be passed, I will say hello and ask them to increase the size of your first batch of books. Zhu Qinglu walked in front and smiled back. Ever since he took advantage of the Tsangting fruit, he treated Guan like his own junior, at least on the surface. Guan smiled and said, "Thank you for your support, senior. I will never forget your kindness." Haha, that's too formal. Zhu Qinglu stroked his beard and smiled. Although he said so, the smile on his face was even brighter. The library was very large, no smaller than the medicine hall. After passing through corridors, the two came to a hall. An old man was sitting at a table drinking tea. Looking into the side hall, there were rows of bookshelves. "Elder Lu, long time no see. How are you these days?" Zhu Qinglu stepped over the threshold, clasped his hands together, and said with a smile on his face. Guan immediately threw a lifespan probe. Lu Chang, 9th level of Foundation Building 226/270/340. When Lu Chang saw Zhu Qinglu, he immediately put down his teacup and stood up to greet him. After a few polite words, Lu Chang took Zhu Qinglu to sit down. They talked about the last time they met, and even talked about the past when they joined Taixuan Sect together 200 years ago. Guan stood behind Zhu Qinglu, looking serious and curious. Lu Chang occasionally glanced at him, feeling quite satisfied. After chatting for half an hour, Zhu Qinglu finally told his purpose. "Okay, Junior, give me your book. I'll take a look and make sure it can be passed on. Then the matter will be settled." Lu Chang looked at Guan and laughed, with a big tone. Guan immediately took out the book he had written. Lu Chang took it, looked down, and smiled. The Investiture of the Gods. "It's a good name." He began to flip through it, and Zhu Qinglu stood up and walked towards the bookshelf next to him. Guan stood by honestly. At first, Lu Chang didn't care and read it casually, but as he read, his body began to sit up straight. At this time, a young man in white stepped in and shouted, "Mr. Lu, do you have any books about sword cultivation? I want to see who in the world of Taicang can defeat that Sanghu sword maniac with a leaf." Lu Chang raised his hand and signaled him to shut up. Guan turned his head and looked over, subconsciously throwing a lifespan probe. Guyu, 8th level of Foundation Establishment 34/291/1402, genius. This was not the first time Guan had seen such a genius, so he did not look at Guyu for a long time. Guyu came to Lu Chang's side and leaned over to look at the Investiture of the Gods in his hand. Not long after, Guyu also read it intently. Half an hour had passed. Zhu Qinglu came over and asked in surprise, "Brother Lu, you are just looking at it casually, why are you reading it for so long?" He then glanced at Guan. "What did this kid write? Isn't it crossing the line?" Lu Chang looked up, was stunned for a moment, then stood up, stared at Guan, and asked, "Did you really write this?" Guan nodded, thinking that it was right. "It was written by an ancestor of my earth." Zhu Qinglu frowned and asked, "Is there a problem? If not, I'll ask him to go back and rewrite it." "No problem, it's very exciting." Lu Chang shook his head and looked at Guan again, saying, "This book can be distributed. You have good talent. I will give you a 30% profit-sharing treatment. 50% of the spiritual stones sold for each book will be handed over to the sect, and 20% will be handed over to the library." Guan naturally did not dare to have any objections and hurriedly thanked him. Zhu Qinglu nodded slightly, thinking that Lu Chang gave him face. Lu Chang smiled and asked, "Should the author's name be the real name?" Guan shook his head and said, "Forget it, I'm afraid I'll get into trouble in the future. Let's use Panan as the author." Thanks to Lai Long for rewarding 500 Qigong coins, Vonen for rewarding 100 Qigong coins, Bookfriend 20230711191309972 for rewarding 100 Qigong coins, and YFCC for rewarding 100 Qigong coins. Qigong comments cannot be released for the past few days. Everyone's comments will be released in a few days. There is no need to post them repeatedly. I can see them in the background. Friends in the reader group can go to the introduction page. There is a button to join at the bottom of the introduction. Guan has made 2 consecutive moves and has become famous. Guess what his first title will be? Chapter 34 30,000 Years of Life, Ziwei Array Record. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Guan originally wanted to use the name of Su Zhonglin, the original author of the Investiture of the Gods, but he thought of another name when he thought of writing other books to earn extra money. Lu Chang and Zhu Qinglu did not think much about it. Compared with Guan, Panin only changed his surname, which they could understand. Then, Lu Chang began to instruct Guan, mainly reminding him what not to write, and he asked Guan to write about Taixuan and create a good image. Even if he did not write about Taixuan, he could use metaphors. In short, the more he praised Taixuan, the better treatment he would get in the future. In this regard, Guan could only agree. As for whether to do it or not, he would talk about it later. Writing books was just something he did in his spare time, and he would not spend a lot of time on it. After Lu Chang finished speaking, Piyu came up to him and said excitedly, "Brother, have you written other books?" Guan shook his head and said, "First time writing." "Ha ha ha, not bad, not bad. I am optimistic about you. You may be able to surpass Qing Xia's status in Taixuan." Piyu patted Guan's shoulder and said with a familiar expression. Guan was immediately interested when he heard it and asked, "Do you know Qing Xia?" Guyu raised his eyebrows and said, "You also like his travel notes?" "I don't know him, I only know that he is a cultivator of Taixuan. I asked Mr. Lu, but he refused to tell me." Lu Chang laughed and pulled Zhu Qinglu out, saying, "Come with me, reminisce about the past, and let their younger generations talk by the way." Zhu Qinglu nodded, and the 2 quickly left the lobby. Piyu asked Guan about the details of writing the Investiture of the Gods. Guan saw that Mr. Lu's attitude towards him was not simple, so he answered patiently. After a full hour, Guan followed Zhu Qinglu out of the library. The disciple named Guyu is not simple. It is rare for Lu Chang to treat him like this. Zhu Qinglu said meaningfully. Guan nodded, but he did not want to make close friends with Guyu. Such a person would easily make his life uneasy. The 2 did not travel together all the time. After they parted, Guan began to purchase herb seeds and a batch of clothes. He did not return to Xian Valley until night fell. Days passed one by one. Another new year came. Xian Valley's second spring festival was smoother, without any twists and turns. The atmosphere was more cheerful than the first year. Guan sent food to Jiang Qiong as in previous years. He began to calculate the days and prepare to welcome Jiang Qiong's departure. After Jiang Qiong left, he would show his skills in the 8 scenery cave heaven and plant spiritual flowers and herbs. After the new year, Guan took Wu Xian to the outer gate and selected 3 errand disciples again. This time, there were 2 girls and 1 boy, named Yan Mei, Yang Min, and Yi Yan. The 3 were the same age, all only 18 years old, and they were looking forward to the upcoming life in Xian Valley. Becoming an errand disciple not only earned spiritual stones, but also had the opportunity to inherit the master's magic. This time, Guan was not only recruiting errand disciples, but also to lead Wu Xian, so that Wu Xian could get used to the identity of the eldest disciple and run errands. For him in the future, after returning to Xian Valley, Guan asked Wu Xian to take the 3 people to meet other people in the valley, and he walked into the mountains and forests on the north side to make some plans. He wanted to plant medicinal herbs in the nearby mountains and forests. The medicinal herbs he handed in last year could already rank among the top 10 in the Outer Gate Medicine Valley. Zhu Qinglu valued him more and improved his treatment. Now he has more than enough to support 9 errand disciples, and he even wants to recruit more. It is difficult for people to be content with the status quo. Guan thought the same about his annual life income. If his life expectancy this year is not as good as last year, he will feel uncomfortable. Guan stood under the tree, scanned the woods, and began to draw the park in his mind. the white spirit rat suddenly jumped out of the forest. When he saw it, Guan had a headache and was looking forward to it. He was afraid that it would pick up a good treasure, and he was looking forward to it picking up a good treasure. It jumped all the way to Guan's feet and spit out a jade ring from its mouth. Guan raised his hand and took it, stuffed the jade ring into his belt, and wanted to check it privately. He picked up the white spirit rat and didn't let it run around. Good performance, I'll feed you at song vine fruit tonight. Guan smiled. The white spirit rat seemed to understand, and stopped struggling, but lay obediently in his arms. After Guan stopped for half an incense stick of time, he turned and left the forest. He stood on the grass next to the park, waiting for someone to come. Not long after, a sound of breaking through the air came. An outer sect disciple came flying on a sword and quickly landed beside Guan. His figure attracted the attention of other Xuangu disciples. Big brother. I'm back. That the person who came was Lu Jiujia, who had gone to participate in the outer sect assessment before. He looked completely different after changing into the outer sect robe. Guan smiled and said, I thought you wouldn't come back. Lu Jiujia scratched his head and said, how is that possible? I started to retreat after I got the foundation building pill. After the foundation building was successful, I rushed back as soon as possible to share the joy with you. Guan smiled and stretched out his hand and pinched his shoulder. His body was indeed stronger. At this time, other people gathered around and excitedly asked him about his feelings in the foundation building stage. He answered one by one, full of vigor and vitality. When Guan first met Lu Jiujia, he was only 15 years old. Now seeing him in glory, Guan was only relieved. On the road to immortality, a person is too lonely. If the people he interacts with can have a good end, he will have fewer regrets. Lu Jiujia's return made Xuangu lively, and Yan Mei and the other two who had just entered the valley were also greatly encouraged. They saw a way to rise. If you work hard in Xuangu, you will have the hope of being promoted to the outer sect. That night, Guan studied the jade ring brought back by the white spirit rat. The restrictions inside were forcibly broken by his consciousness, and he found that it was full of spiritual stones, unexpected wealth. Guan had more expectations for the white spirit rat, which successfully obtained the right to eat the tsangting fruit. Lu Jiujia stayed in Xian Valley for a month and then left. Everyone knew that after he left, it was likely that they would never see each other again in this life, unless they could also become outer disciples. In a blink of an eye, 2 years had passed. Guan was already 30 years old, but he looked only about 20 years old after taking the anti-aging pill. His lifespan had exceeded 30,000 years. Xian Valley was expanding in scale, and the number of outer disciples who asked him to manage the cave had reached 11. His lifespan was increasing every month. His life was busy and fulfilling, but he did not feel tired at all, but full of fighting spirit. Midsummer arrived, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse, and fireflies were shining in the quiet mountains and forests. In the forest, Jiang Qiong, dressed in white, walked in front. She was barefoot, and even if she stepped on the branches, she did not feel any discomfort. Guan followed behind him, silent. Okay, let's stop here. Jiang Qiong stopped, turned around and looked at Guan. Guan nodded. He hesitated for a moment, and said, Master, be careful on the way out. After all, this is still the territory of Taixuan. After so many years together, Jiang Qiong taught him so many spells. It would be a lie to say that there is no emotion at all, but compared to this emotion, Guan hopes that she will leave more. Jiang Qiong nodded. She raised her right hand, and there was a blue book in her hand. She threw the secret book directly to Guan. Practice well. Next time I come back, I will examine your cultivation. If you disappoint me, Master will beat you. Jiang Qiong threatened the child in a tone, and waved his fist, making Guan laugh and cry. Without waiting for him to reply, Jiang Qiong disappeared from the spot, and Guan could feel her demonic energy leaving quickly. In the dim forest, Guan's mouth slightly raised, and he turned to walk towards Xian Valley, while looking at the secret book in his hand, Ziwei Zhenlu. He simply flipped through it and found that every page of this book had special restrictions. The pages introduced the formations in words, but the practice of the formations needed to be explored with divine consciousness, something. Guan thought of the formations in Baiying Dong Tian. It was because of those formations that so many great cultivators of Taixuan sect flew over Xian Valley, but they could not capture the existence of Tsang Tingshu. Although Jiang Qiong was only at the 9th level of the Jindan realm, her attainments in formations and alchemy far exceeded the Jindan realm. After all, she reached the Jindan realm at the age of 40, and then she had been studying formations and alchemy. She said that during the years when she pretended to be dead, she had been thinking about formations. Guan suddenly felt that the Ziwei Zhenlu in his hand was heavy, the moon sets and the sun rises. The early morning arrived, Jiang Qiong's departure only affected Guan, and life in Xian Valley remained normal. After Guan led the disciples to practice exercises, he took Yilan back to his attic. He took out the small wooden box that had been prepared long ago and handed it to Yilan. This small wooden box was square and finely crafted, as if there were jewels hidden inside. Yilan was stunned for a moment, then curiously opened the wooden box, and then she saw a pill placed in the box. "Big brother, what kind of pill is this?" Yilan asked. Guan sat at the table, pouring tea for himself, and smiled. "Foundation pill, specially prepared for you. Don't tell anyone. If the disciples in the valley can reach the 9th level of Qi training in the future, I will also give it, but they can't let them know in advance that I have a foundation pill, so as not to cause trouble." Foundation pill. Yilan widened her eyes and subconsciously wanted to refuse, but Guan got there first and said, "Don't worry, I left a foundation building pill for myself. When you succeed in building your foundation, you may be able to become my backer in the outer sect in the future. Practice hard, that's the way to repay me." Yilan was in a complicated mood, and she wanted to say a lot, but she couldn't. Guan said earnestly, "Life is a long journey, and people always have a lot of ideas. Don't forget what your biggest pursuit in this life is." Although Yilan didn't often pester him in these years, every time she looked at him, her eyes were so gentle, and he could sometimes overhear other disciples' discussions, and everyone could see her love for him. Guan's feelings for Yilan were just brother-sister feelings, and he hadn't reached the point where he wanted to stay with her for the rest of his life, and he only had cultivation in his heart. After hearing this, Yilan nodded heavily and said softly, "Big brother, don't worry, I will definitely work hard to practice and won't let you down. I will work hard to climb up and take care of you in the future." At this point, she also blinked at Guan. Guan smiled, then waved his hand to signal her to leave. Yilan put away the foundation building pill, turned around and left. She closed the door, but when she was about to close it, she suddenly said, "Big brother, no matter where I go in the future, I will not be tempted by other men. I will only have you in my heart." After saying that, she slammed the door shut and left as if escaping. Chapter 35 Feiye Sword Immortal, The Inheritance of the Divine Realm. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Yilan got the foundation building pill, it took only 1 month to successfully build the foundation. That night, Guan secretly protected her to overcome the tribulation without any danger. On the 2nd day after successfully building the foundation, Yilan said goodbye and left in a hurry. Her sudden foundation building became a big story in Xian Valley. The disciples had many speculations about it. Some said that it was Guan who gave her the foundation building pill, some said that Yilan had a strange encounter, and some said that practicing in the mountains and forests was helped by heaven. In any case, Yilan left after all. Under the scorching summer, Guan stood on the balcony of the attic. He looked at the busy disciples and suddenly felt that things had changed. Qing Xiandan, Zhang Chuanxiu, Liya, Meng Lang, Lu Zhoujiao, and Yilan were all gone. Now the remaining people are his descendants. Under him, the oldest one is Xiaochuan. Xiaochuan has given up the idea of going to the outer sect, but he is not discouraged. He still lives actively. In addition to practicing, he has found other meanings in life. Guan looked at a corner of the Medicine Valley, where there was a bamboo fence with ducks raised inside. Xiaochuan was lying on the bamboo fence, communicating with the ducks. These ducks are not ordinary ducks from ordinary farmers. These ducks have a trace of blood of 3rd-level monsters. Each duck costs 100 low-grade spirit stones. Xiaochuan emptied his pockets and only bought 2. The remaining 10 were paid by Guan, which made Xiaochuan more grateful to him. It is said that there is the blood of 3rd-level monsters, but it is a blessing for this kind of duck to grow to the 1st level. The flesh and blood of low-level monsters is also helpful to cultivators. Should I open a livestock industry? It can earn more life and spirit stones. Guan suddenly had an idea. It is not a bad idea to herd sheep and cattle in the mountains. However, if he does this, he must continue to expand his manpower. He is afraid that things will get out of hand and Taixuan will have opinions about him. He thought about running out and finding a deep mountain to do it by himself, but he quickly rejected it. Not to mention that the vine tree was difficult to move, he didn't want to miss the resource channel of Taixuan. In Taixuan, as long as he had enough spirit stones, he could buy anything he wanted, but it was not certain outside. There are always some rare things that are hard to find. At worst, he can beautify Taixuan in the book in the future. Guan secretly thought that as long as he handed in enough herbs and monster flesh, how could Taixuan embarrass him? They might even lend him a hand. Well, that's it. In the future, Xuanhuanglong will be the animal trainer, and Wuxin will be the eldest disciple to manage the planting. They will be my left and right protectors in Xian Valley. The more Guan thought about it, the more feasible it seemed, and he began to think about the plan. There was a huge fortune in the jade ring that Bai Lingshu found before. He calculated that it was equivalent to 2 million low-grade spirit stones, which could also be counted as 200 high-grade spirit stones, enough for him to show his strength. Do it when you think of it. Guan called out to Xuanhuanglong, who immediately ran over, jumped, and landed on the balcony. Big brother, what's up? Xuanhuanglong asked. Guan expressed his thoughts, and Xuanhuanglong's eyes lit up, and he became more and more excited as he listened. The two hit it off. Finally, Guan asked Xuanhuanglong to go to the outer gate and make a list on paper. Xuanhuanglong agreed directly and set off that day. Xuanhuanglong also mastered the sword controlling technique, but his spiritual power was insufficient, so it took 2 days to go back and forth, and he had to rest for a night in the middle. 3 days later, Xuanhuanglong returned and handed the paper he had already written to Guan. He was excited and kept talking. It turned out that he met Lu Jiujia in the outer gate, and Lu Jiujia personally took him to inspect the monsters, saving a lot of trouble. After the two discussed, Guan decided to buy 50 young beasts to test the waters first, because only if he bought so many, the beast hall of the outer gate would be willing to escort them to Xian Valley. After a day's rest, Xuanhuanglong took the spirit stones given by Guan and set off. Tang Yu and Su Han also accompanied them. Both of them had reached the 5th level of Qi training, and there was more momentum with more people. If it weren't for the recent harvest of a batch of herbs, Guan would have wanted to go in person, fearing that he would be cheated. Fortunately, such a thing did not happen. After all, Taixuan Sect is a famous and upright sect. 5 days later, Xuanhuanglong and his 2 companions returned on swords. Behind them were 3 double-horned white eagles with a wingspan of 5 feet. There were monks standing on the backs of the eagles, and the eagle claws were holding large cages with lambs tied inside. These lambs had not grown horns yet, so they were not bumpy during the flight, which was related to the talisman paper on the cage. After everyone landed, Guan stepped forward to thank him. The attitude of the 3 disciples of the medicine hall was not enthusiastic, but it did not embarrass him. After a few polite words, they stepped on the eagles and left. Xuanhuanglong, I spent 1,000 low-grade spirit stones on these sheep. You have to take good care of them. Guan patted Xuanhuanglong on the shoulder and said meaningfully. Not only spirit stones, but also my life. These sheep have the strength of the 1st level when they grow up, which is equivalent to the 3rd level of Qi training, but they cannot be born with the same intelligence as humans. Xuanhuanglong nodded seriously, scratched his head, and said, Big brother, can you recruit 2 more menial disciples to help me? Guan said, let others help you first, and then recruit disciples in half a year. My storage bag is a bit tight. Xuanhuanglong smiled and thanked him quickly. Guan actually still has a lot of spirit stones, but he was afraid that he would attract too much attention, so he chose to restrain himself for half a year. After dealing with Xuanhuanglong, Guan returned to the attic. Everyone in the valley ran over to watch these 1st-level sheep monsters. For them who paid attention to flowers and plants all day, the appearance of sheep monsters made them feel novel. Guan returned to the attic and prepared to write the next volume of the Investiture of the Gods. Lu Cheng from the library urged him several times, saying that it was time for him to start writing. Listening to the laughter of the disciples outside the window, the corners of Gu En's mouth unconsciously raised. In a courtyard, the white-haired Ziwei was sitting under a tree, holding a leaf in his right hand and frowning. Compared with him who successfully overcame the tribulation a few years ago, he is much older, has lost his vigor, and does not look like a great monk in the nascent Soul realm. Xuanhuanglong walked into the courtyard. He turned around and saw his father under the tree. He immediately stepped forward, walked to Ziwei, and snatched the leaves from his hand. "Father, how long will you continue to be decadent?" Xuanhuanglong asked angrily. He threw the leaves in his hand to the ground and stepped on them. Ziwei raised his eyes to look at him, his eyes as calm as water, and said, "Being a father is not decadent. How long have you been looking at the leaves all day long? How long have you been without breathing, and how long have you been without tempering your sword intention?" Xuanhuanglong said with a tone of hatred on his face. When he thought of the cowardice he had suffered over the years, he was filled with anger and could hardly hold it back. Ziwei lowered his head to pick up the leaf, and asked, "Then why did you hold your sword and meditate so hard without being satisfied? Do you who hold the sword work harder than me who holds the leaf?" Xuanhuanglong choked and his face turned red. He gritted his teeth and said, "A sword is a sword, and a leaf is a leaf. I don't know the way of the sword, so I just sat here. You are different. Do you want to pursue the way of the leaf? But Feiye's sword fairy defeated me with only one leaf. Do you think the leaf in his hand is not a sword? This is different. The true art of swordsmanship is never limited to one sword." Ziwei whispered, his eyes locked on the leaves in his hands again, and his eyes became wandering. Xuanhuanglong cursed secretly, then reached for the storage bag with his right hand, took out a book from it, and said, "Father, take a look at this book. It's called Xuanhuanglong. It has spread in the world of immortality in the past 2 years. Many sects have while circulating. Some people said that it records the battle of cultivating immortals in the ancient era." Ziwei remained indifferent. Xuanhuanglong placed Xuanhuanglong at his feet, then turned and left. As soon as he walked out of the yard, he couldn't help but take out another book of Xuanhuanglong from his storage bag. Ziwei began to be in a daze. I don't know how much time passed, but he finally couldn't help but blink, and subconsciously glanced at the Xuanhuanglong on the ground. In autumn, Xuangu is covered in pale yellow color. In the attic, Guan and Liya were sitting across from each other drinking tea. Liya was talking non-stop with a book in his hand. It's the story of Fengshen. Taixuan sect has been in the limelight in the past 2 years. Firstly, Feiye's sword Immortal defeated the Xuanhu sword maniac in the nascent soul realm with one leaf and became famous in the world of cultivating immortals. Secondly, it is because of the book The Romance of the Gods and the stories of cultivating immortals recorded in it. It's too grand, and those incredible spells are being discussed by various religions, and some even say that this may be a true story from ancient times. Gu En's brows furrowed as he listened to Liya's wild talk about the romance of the gods. Is it so popular? But his profit distribution is not much. Did the library get a kickback, or did other sects read books that were not genuine? Then I thought about it. That's right, how could the world of cultivators talk about copyright? Liya talked for a long time, and then he still couldn't finish his words. I don't know who this Panin is. He is really a great talent. I really want to get to know him. It is said that even inner disciples and disciples are reading this book. Guan said curiously, "It's so powerful, then I have to take a look and see if it can compare with Qing Xia's travels. How can a book that can't be read on the screen be compared with Xuanhuanglong?" Liya said disdainfully. Guan just smiled. Liya put down the book in his hand, picked up the teacup, drank it all in one gulp, and then said, "I'm leaving. I'm going out to practice. It won't last 10 years, and it will be difficult to come back." To him, 10 years was nothing, but to junior brother Gu, it was different, so he went out of his way to explain this matter. Guan was not surprised. Immortal cultivators never stayed in their sects all their lives. They had to go out to practice, look for opportunities, and cultivate their minds. "Do you have a goal?" Guan asked casually. Liya smiled and said, "It is true. A great monk in the realm of gods appeared in Jizhou in the south. He is about to reach his end. He wants to choose a suitable successor before he dies. This person is a sword cultivator. I ready to try. Transformation into gods. What realm is that? How many levels higher than the nascent soul realm? Guan asked, pretending to be curious. Liya smiled and said, the transformation of God realm is above the Yuanying realm. If it is several levels higher than the Yuanying realm, then he will not appear in Taixuan. There is not only the Taixuan dynasty on this land, but also it is said that there is a wider world on the other side of the sea, but without the nascent soul realm, it is difficult to travel through it. He stood up and said with a proud smile, Junior brother Gu, when I come back, I will be the successor of the great monk of the transformation god realm. When the time comes, you call me senior brother, and I may not be able to let you see the magic of the transformation god realm. After saying that, he turned around and walked to the window sill, jumped out, and flew away with the sword. Guan looked at the footprints on the window sill and raised his eyebrows. The realm of transformation into gods. It must be reached before Liya comes back. Thanks to book friend 202307111111913099972 for the reward of 100 starting coins. Keep up the habit of reading every day. The most important thing about the new book issue is the reading data. Please give me a monthly pass. It should be available later this month. In addition to the explosive update on the day of release, there will be an additional chapter for every 500 monthly passes. Chapter 36 Xuanhuanglong Qigong, Comprehending Supernatural Powers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Liya left, Guan devoted himself to the construction of Xian Valley. His free time began to decrease because those young sheep monsters were very good at making trouble. When they were 4 months old, they ran in the mountains and forests as if they were walking on flat ground, as fast as the cheetahs on Earth in the previous life. If it weren't for the fact that there were only immortal cultivators in the valley, they would have run away long ago. Guan had to study the Ziwei formation record left by Jiang Qiong and learn some low-level prohibitions to seal the sheepfold. After the 6-month period, Guan asked Wu Xian to take Xiaochuan to the outer gate to recruit 2 more errand disciples, named Shenhong and Zhenshao, with mediocre qualifications, which made him very satisfied. The number of errand disciples in Xian Valley reached 10, and every day was very lively. Time flies, and time passes like a white horse, and it will never come back. 3 years passed in a flash. It was autumn again. Xiaochuan was inspecting various parks, and behind him were rows of ducks, in groups, and mighty. On the tops of the mountains around the Medicine Valley, there were disciples meditating and absorbing qi, and the forest shook from time to time, which was the sound of Tang Yu and Su Han chasing the sheep monster. Guan walked out of the forest in the west with a smile on his face. He had just picked a batch of herbs and gained hundreds of years of life. He was getting closer and closer to a life of 100,000 years. His lifespan has now reached 80,000 years. In 3 years, he earned nearly 50,000 years of life, mainly because the herbs he had planted for many years had reached maturity, and 10,000 years of life were earned by helping outer disciples manage the cave. The petite Chin ran out of the woods carrying a bamboo basket. She quickly came to Guan and said, Master, today, can you teach me to make pills? That there was still a dead leaf on her head, and the hair on both sides of her cheeks was slightly messy. Guan said with a smile, Of course you can, but you have to use your own herbs, so that you will be cautious. Zhen Qin once heard that Guan had taken the anti-aging pill, and she immediately became interested in alchemy and began to pester him. This process lasted for half a year. I've been ready for a long time. Zhen Qin said excitedly, jumping around Guan like a girl who never grew up. Swoosh! A sound of breaking through the air passed over Xian Valley. Guan looked up and habitually threw a lifespan probe, another Yuanying realm cultivator. This year, more than 10 Yuanying realm cultivators have passed over Xian Valley, which makes Guan feel uneasy and always feels that something big is happening. The World Outer Sect conference that year did not attract so many Yuanying realm cultivators. No. The dragon strength divine Xuanhuanglong must be mentioned. What if a great cultivator far beyond the Yuanying realm appears and sees through his cultivation? Guan decided secretly. Over the years, the increase in lifespan from Longjin Xuanhuanglong has become less and less. Now it is good to increase his lifespan by 1 year in half a year. It is estimated that after another 10 years, this skill will not be able to increase his lifespan. Then, Guan took Xinqin back to his attic and began to teach her the art of alchemy. Until late at night, Guan quietly came to the Yuanying cave heaven. Since Jiang Qiong left, Guan has also explored the other 6 caves. At the end of the caves are all corpses like Meng Lang, who were refined by Qing Xiandan and Jiang Qiong using different Gu techniques of Wan Gu Xian Gong. For these Gu corpses, Guan has no intention of moving them for the time being. He walked all the way to the Tsangting tree, rolled up his clothes with both hands, and meditated on the spot. At this time, a black shadow fell from the tree and got into his arms, a little black dragon. It has a slender body, about 2 feet long, with a pair of dragon horns, dragon whiskers around its mouth, and tiny black dragon scales all over its body. Its 4 claws are sharp, and it looks very similar to the dragon in ancient Chinese legends, except for the color. This is the holy beast of the ancient Hao sect, Haolong. Guan touched it while checking its lifespan. Haolong, first level 1/965/18,000, the lifespan has increased again. When Haolong was just born, it only had a lifespan of 500 years. Only 1 year has passed, and its lifespan has almost doubled. It is worthy of being a demon beast with 9th level potential. Guan couldn't help but smile when he thought of the process of Haolong recognizing him as its master last year. The newly born Haolong bit him directly, and he was so angry that he threw it away, and then it came over to rub against him pitifully. Guan felt that Haolong was not recognizing its master, but identifying who was its relative through blood. They established a kind of soul resonance. He could read its mind, but could not directly control its life and death. Haolong only serves one master in his life, which means that although he is violent by nature, he is extremely loyal and righteous. Be good, come and eat. Guan took out a demon sheep that he had killed from his storage bag. It was just killed yesterday morning, and it only gave him 3 years of life. Haolong's eyes lit up, and he immediately grabbed the body of the demon sheep and flew to the side. The body of the demon sheep was several times larger than Haolong, but it seemed very easy to hold it with its dragon claws, as if the demon sheep had no weight. Guan called up the attribute panel, looked at the column of skills, and invested 2,000 years of life in the Dragon Power Divine Yuan Gong. The Dragon Power Divine Yuan function hides his cultivation and aura, which is the foundation of his life and the most important thing. He even thinks that this skill is more important than the Divine Wood Pure Yang Gong. You have devoted 2,000 years of your life to the evolution of the Dragon Power Divine Yuan Gong. You have practiced the Dragon Power Divine Yuan Gong for 10 years, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth has tempered your body, and your physical body has strengthened. You have practiced the Dragon Power Divine Yuan Gong for 100 years, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth has tempered your body, and your physical body has strengthened. You have practiced the Dragon Power Divine Yuan Gong for 200 years, and your Dragon Power Divine Yuan Gong has reached the pinnacle. You have practiced Long Jin Shin Yuan Gong for 400 years. On this day, you captured the true meaning of the earth. Your Long Jin Shin Yuan Gong returned to its original state and was promoted to Xuanhuanglong Qigong. You have practiced Long Jin Shin Yuan Gong for 1,500 years. You feel the breath of the rules of the earth. Your Xuanhuanglong Qigong breaks through the limit and is promoted to Xuanhuanglong Qigong. You have practiced Long Jin Shin Yuan Gong for 1,800 years. Your understanding of Xuanhuanglong Qigong has improved and you have mastered it. You have practiced Long Jin Shin Yuan Gong for 2,000 years. Your understanding of Xuanhuanglong Qigong has reached its peak. You have comprehended the magical power, Xuanhuanglong Wei. A line of prompts appeared in front of Guan. Long Jin Shin Yuan Gong was promoted to Xuanhuanglong Qigong, and then to Xuanhuanglong Qigong. He even awakened his magical power. Guan was overjoyed and felt that he was very lucky this time. A huge amount of memories quickly poured into his mind, making him fall into the vast information of Taoism. Haolong, who was chewing mutton, turned his head, and his gem-like eyes showed curiosity. The grass under Guan was covered with wisps of green air, surrounding his body. With his eyes closed, he began to breathe unconsciously, and there was a faint dragon roar. Xuanhuang Dragon Qigong, which tempers the body with the Xuanhuang Qi of the earth, can make the body and the world merge naturally. The so-called dragon roar is actually the sound of the earth. 2 hours passed before Guan woke up. he opened his eyes and frowned. He saw that all the flowers and plants around him were withered. He quickly got up and scanned the herbs in Yuanying Dongtian. After scanning around, he breathed a sigh of relief. The withered ones were weeds, and those spiritual flowers and herbs were not affected too much. Don't mess around in the future. Whether it is to improve the skills or break through, you have to leave Yuanying Dongtian, so as not to drain the spiritual energy here. Guan sat down again and began to review Xuanhuanglong Qigong, while practicing according to the method, condensing a breath of Xuanhuang Dragon Qi, the body and nature become one. Haolong had eaten his fill and was sleeping next to the sheep's corpse. Only the sound of the wind remained in the 8th scenery cave heaven. Early in the morning, Guan walked down from the attic. He changed into a green robe, his black hair was tied casually behind his head, and 2 strands of long hair were left by his ears, showing the elegant and extraordinary temperament of a cultivator. His body has not yet completely adapted to Xuanhuang Dragon Qigong, but he is not in a hurry. If he practices every night, he will be able to practice Xuanhuang Dragon Qi in a month at most. And the magical power brought by Xuanhuang Dragon Qigong, Xuanhuang Dragon Power, does not require him to practice alone. When Xuanhuang Dragon Qi is born, dragon power will be formed by itself. The so-called dragon power is actually the power of heaven and earth, which can shock the common people. Guan began to call on his disciples to practice exercises. When everyone gathered and the exercises began, they could all feel that Guan was in a good mood today. Zhenqin curiously asked the master what made him so happy. Nothing, I read a book last night, called Investiture of the Gods. You can also go to the library to borrow it when you have time. Guan smiled while doing exercises. Xiao Chuan's eyes lit up and said, I know Investiture of the Gods. Almost everyone in the outer sect has a copy. It is said that it records the ancient secrets of the world of immortal cultivation. The disciples became interested and began to ask Xiao Chuan what Investiture of the Gods was about. Guan did not interrupt again, and was still thinking about Xuanhuang Dragon Qigong in his heart. In the next month, he practiced Xuanhuang Dragon Qigong every night, and finally successfully cultivated a breath of Xuanhuang Dragon Qi in his abdomen. He took his cultivation and breath concealment to a higher level. Guan felt relieved, and he could now live in peace. This year was spent in a dull manner like the previous years. For Guan, dullness is the best result. The winter snow has just begun to melt, and Xian Valley has ushered in the new year again. All the disciples are preparing for the spring festival. Guan was reading Qingxia Travels under a tree, very absorbed. Zhenqin suddenly came over, with her hands behind her waist, leaned over and asked, Master, what do you want to eat tomorrow night? I'll make it for you. Guan's eyes did not move, and he answered, whatever, I'll eat whatever you cook. Zhenqin was curious and came over to see what book he was reading, but was stopped by him. Hurry up and prepare the dishes. If you delay the festival tomorrow night, be careful that I won't teach you how to make pills. Guan pretended to be serious. Zhenqin pouted when she heard it, and could only turn around and leave. Guan vaguely heard her muttering, reading an indecent book again. His mouth twitched. Who spread this? Ruining his reputation. Now all the disciples in Yaogu know that he likes to read Qingxia Travels. Although they dare not mention it in front of him, they often tease him in private. Guan stood up and put Qingxia Travels in his arms. I'm quitting today. Guan walked out of the courtyard and prepared to check the park. His eyes were suddenly attracted by the valley entrance, and his brows furrowed. A man in a white robe walked over. He looked to be in his 30s, with a handsome face and extraordinary demeanor. What made Guan frown was that he could not sense the other person's breath. He immediately threw a lifespan probe at the other person. Li Xiandao, 8th level of the spiritualization realm 230/899/3020. Chapter 37 The Emperor's Recruitment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The ultimate lifespan of 3,000 years. Guan was frightened by the information about the other party's lifespan. This was the first time he met someone with such qualifications. Moreover, he is still at the 8th level of the divine transformation realm. It's just that this lifespan is a bit low, and it doesn't meet Guan's expectation of the lifespan of a person in the transformation of God realm. He can only live for 899 years in the transformation of God realm. Guan guessed that the other party might have been injured and lost his longevity. He immediately walked over, and at the same time thinking in his mind, he guessed that the other party might be a senior executive of Taixuan Sect, but he couldn't be too respectful. After all, the other party suppressed his aura. If he could see through the other party's cultivation, the other party would definitely pester him endlessly, and they might even treat him as a demon spy. Li Xiandao walked towards the valley. While looking around the park along the way, Guan walked up to him, clasped his fists and asked, "Guan, the master of Xian Valley, I don't know your friend's name, why are you here?" That Li Xiandao cast his gaze on Guan. His eyes were indifferent and showed a great sense of oppression. He smiled, and the oppressive feeling disappeared, giving people an illusion. He smiled gently and said, "I am from Xia Xiandao, coming from Zhangzhou, and coming to Taixuan to visit my children. The journey is long and the journey is tiring. I want to rest in your valley for a few days to recover my spiritual power. I wonder if the owner of the valley can accept it." That when Guan heard this, he couldn't refuse, so he immediately agreed, and then called Xuanhuan and asked Xuanhuan to arrange a place for Li Xiandao. Guan did not look at Li Xiandao to prevent him from becoming suspicious. "The surname is Li. I am visiting the child. Could it be that he is from the royal family?" Guan was secretly curious. There are so many medicine valleys in the outer sect, so instead of going to the Xian Valley, it is most likely related to Liya. Guan continued to inspect the park and everything was business as usual. The other side, Xuanhuan brought Li Xiandao to an uninhabited house. He said, "The house is simple. Don't dislike it. If you need anything, please feel free to tell me or other disciples." Li Xiandao nodded and asked, "I saw sheep in the mountains and forests on this road, and there were disciples taking care of them. Aren't you Yaogu? Why do you raise so many sheep?" Xuanhuan did not hide anything. He replied, "Originally, we only grow medicinal herbs in the valley, but my spiritual root qualifications are limited, so I have no idea of going to the outer sect. After knowing that I like to raise livestock, senior brother will satisfy my idea and earn spiritual stones by the way. Help more disciples practice and go to the outer sect as soon as possible." "Oh. Senior brother, is that the valley master?" "That's right. Then he is really a good person, thinking about you so much." "That's right, my senior brother is the best person in the world." After hearing Li Xuandao's praise, Xuanhuan suddenly became happy and began to praise Guan gushingly. This made Li Xiandao more interested in Guan, and he asked more about Guan's deeds. Xuanhuan didn't think much, pulled Li Xiandao to sit down, and talked more energetically. Guan, who was inspecting the park, raised the corners of his mouth, secretly thinking that his pain for this silly boy was not in vain. Regardless of whether Li Xiandao is related to Li Ye or is a senior member of Taixuan Sect, the better his image is, there is no harm in it. It can't be that Li Xiandao is from Qianqiu Pavilion, right? Etc. Qianqiu Pavilion. Guan suddenly felt a chill running down his spine and his smile froze. Don't be afraid of 10,000, just be afraid of the unexpected. When facing Li Xiandao later, we must be more cautious and be careful about sailing the 10,000-year ship. Li Xuandao's arrival aroused the curiosity of other disciples. After all, few people come to Xian Valley as guests on weekdays. On this day, Li Xiandao did not come out again after checking in, as if he was really recovering his spiritual energy. Because of Li Xuandao's arrival, Guan did not dare to go to the Yuanying cave and stayed in the attic at night. Early the next morning, Guan led his disciples to practice as usual. Li Xiandao heard the commotion and came out to see, and Xuanhuan even greeted him warmly. Guan just nodded towards Li Xiandao, but he did not shy away from Li Xiandao. As the morning exercises began, Li Xiandao didn't care at first, but looking at it, he found it interesting. After finishing the exercises, Guan asked the disciples to disperse. He took out a book from his arms and began to read while walking towards the attic. At this time, he must be calm and not break his living condition because of Li Xuandao's arrival. However, as soon as he walked into the courtyard, Li Xiandao caught up with him. "Valley Master, what are you looking at?" Li Xiandao asked with a smile. Guan turned around, raised the book in his hand, and said, "Have you read The Romance of the Gods?" Li Xuandao's smile became even wider and he said, "I have actually seen it, and I already know it by heart." "Oh. So we are the same people." "Haha, as soon as I met the Valley Master, I felt like we were old friends at first sight. Let's talk about Fengshen Yanshi. Hearing Li Xuandao's hypocritical words, Guan could only agree with a smile. He invited Li Xiandao to go upstairs. When Li Xiandao sat down, he began to boil water and make tea, and used his spiritual power to make a fire. Li Xiandao glanced at the layout in the room and said, "Master of the Valley, what do you think of King Zhou? Good guy. Are you going to test me when you come up?" Guan turned his back to Li Xiandao, and while putting tea leaves into the teacup, he said, "Judging from the story alone, he is cruel and unkind, but upon closer inspection, his actions are somewhat unreasonable." After hearing this, Li Xiandao sighed with emotion. "Yes, when I read it for the first time, I thought King Zhou was stupid and cruel. But after reading it again, I felt something was wrong. In the world and the book, immortals and gods really exist, and King Zhou, it is impossible not to know that under such circumstances, daring to desecrate the statue of Nuwa is not the behavior of a king. There is also Nuwa. She is aloof. When faced with the mortals who blaspheme her, she does not directly punish them. Instead, she sends vixens to disrupt the emperor's heart and cause chaos in the world. Can such behavior really be regarded as an immortal or a god?" Guan turned around, walked to the table with the tea cup, and placed it in front of Li Xiandao. He smiled and said, "It is true that there are many unreasonable things, but after all, this is a story made up by people. It is understandable that the contradictions are written for the sake of looking good." He was unable to determine Li Xuandao's identity, so his stance was ambiguous. Li Xiandao shook his head and said, "Maybe the story is false, but the world revealed in the story is true, that is, there is a god 3 feet above your head, and it is difficult for humans to defeat God." Guan didn't expect that he understood Fengshen Yanshi this way. If King Zhou is powerful enough to dominate the major immortal sects, how should the story be written? Li Xiandao asked. Guan thought for a while and said, "The one who fights in the end is not Lord Tongtian, but King Zhou." Li Xiandao was stunned and couldn't help laughing. He picked up the tea cup and blew away the heat inside. Guan was unsure of his smile and could only remain silent. After Li Xiandao took a sip of tea, he began to care about the cultivation of Xuangu. He even asked about some details of cultivation, and Guan answered them one by one. "You joined the Taixuan sect and didn't ask for immortal life, but you focused on raising flowers and grass. Is it a helpless move, or do you really like it?" Li Xiandao asked. Guan smiled bitterly and said, "There is both helplessness and love. Everyone has their own pursuits. Immortality may not be the only meaning. Of course, if I have excellent qualifications, I must also pursue immortality." Li Xiandao joked, "You are really a wonderful person, you don't hide it at all. In this life, when looking back at the past and looking at the future, there are only 4 words, joy and suffering." Guan replied with a shrug. He became increasingly suspicious that Li Xiandao was from Qianqiu Pavilion and wanted to test his attitude towards Xiangu. Li Xiandao put down his teacup and asked, "What do you think of the current emperor? Do you think he is King Zhou?" Guan was stunned. Is this topic too abrupt? Why are we talking about the emperor of Taixuan dynasty all of a sudden? Could it be that he is not from Qianqiu Pavilion and is really a relative of Liya? Guan's thoughts were like lightning and he said, "I don't know much. After all, before entering Taixuan sect, I was just a servant. Now in this Medicine Valley, I can't hear any news from the outside world." "Why, what did the Holy Master do?" Li Xiandao smiled and said, "That's not true. It's just that he has been in power for too long, and there has been a lot of discussion about him both in the court and among the people. The secular world seems to think that the emperor cannot stay in power for too long. If he stays in power for a long time, he will sooner or later become fatuous and become incompetent. The immortal world is even more afraid that the emperor's cultivation will allow the imperial power to overtake the immortal world." Guan became nervous. There were too many different classes involved in these words, and he didn't dare to talk nonsense. Seeing that Guan did not dare to answer, Li Xiandao joked and said with a smile, "Do you think it is better for the emperor to be in power for a long time, or to replace him every few decades?" Guan knew that he was at the 8th level of the soul transformation realm, so he didn't dare not answer. After pondering for a moment, Guan said, "In my opinion, it depends on the character of the current emperor. If he is virtuous and can govern the world well, there will be no problem if he remains in power. If the emperor is virtuous, he will still have many years to live. But giving up the throne to a mediocre son is a disaster for the people of the world. People don't care about the future. They only live 100 years and live a miserable life. Then they will blame the emperor for giving up the throne. Li Xiandao smiled again, and Guan clearly felt that his mood had improved, etc. Li Ye's relative, surnamed Li, first talked to King Zhou, and then asked the current emperor. Guan had heard before at the Ji family that the emperor of the Taixuan dynasty also practiced immortality and had been in power for 200 years. You are right. I really shouldn't listen to those voices. I should go and see the lives of the people with my own eyes. Li Xiandao said with a smile. As soon as these words came out, Guan's face changed drastically and he said in shock, Are you the current holy emperor? With that said, he stood up. Li Xiandao raised his hand, and a strong pressure pushed Guan down. He did not resist to prevent the other party from seeing his cultivation level. Keep your voice down. You don't have to treat me as an emperor. Just treat me as Li Ye's father. Just call me uncle. Li Xiandao smiled. His smile was gentle and lacked the majesty of an emperor. Guan didn't know how to answer the question, the emperor at the 8th level of the transformation realm. Big trouble. Li Xiandao said, take out Tiansu. Upon hearing this, Guan immediately took out the Tianshu sword from the storage bag. When Li Xiandao saw Tiansu's sword, his eyes became complicated. He picked up the scabbard and stroked it gently. Guan thought of Li Ye's words. The Tianshu sword was a sword given to his mother by his father. Later, after his mother died, the sword was passed to him. Looking at Li Xuandao's expression now, Guan began to think about the grievances between Li Xiandao and Li Ye's mother. For a long time, Li Xiandao put down the Tiansu sword, pushed it towards Guan, and said, in Taixuan Sect, Li Ye has the best relationship with you. I heard that you also saved him. You hold this sword and I will reward you. From now on, you are the master of Tiansu sword. In addition, I am planning to build a medicinal valley near Taixuan. Many high-level medicinal herbs will be planted in it. You can help me take care of it. I will not treat you badly. I will help you build foundations and even form elixirs in the future. It's not difficult, but you need to understand that from now on you may appear to be a disciple of Taixuan Sect, but your heart belongs to me. As always, please give me monthly votes and recommended votes. Chapter 38, The Sword of Hate, The Changes in Taixuan Sect. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Li Xiandao finished speaking, he looked at Guan with a smile on his face, waiting for his decision. Guan was confused. The emperor also wanted him to be a spy. This was forcing him to be a triple agent. This was not what Guan was pursuing, but the key was that he couldn't refuse. The other party was higher than him in both cultivation and status. If he didn't refuse, he would have troubles in the future. If he refused, he would have troubles now. But when Guan thought of the high-level herbs he just mentioned, his heart beat faster. Guan asked hesitantly, do I have room to refuse? Yes, if you refuse, I will erase your memory of today, as if you and I have never met. Li Xiandao chuckled. Guan asked helplessly, why choose me? My qualifications are mediocre. With your status, it is easy for you to poach disciples from Taixuan Sect. Li Xiandao shook his head and said, I am not deliberately poaching disciples from Taixuan Sect. It just happens that you have a very good relationship with Li Ye and want to help you. Moreover, your qualifications are mediocre, so I am more relieved because I can meet your needs. He paused and said in a frivolous tone, people don't want the emperor to be immortal, and I don't want my master of Medicine Valley to be immortal. You are really humorous. Guan could only say, if that's the case, then I can only agree. After decades, when you look back, you will not regret your decision today. Li Xiandao laughed, his tone full of pride. Guan couldn't help but ask curiously, Your Majesty has been paying attention to senior brother Li? The matter has been discussed. There is no need to call me Your Majesty anymore. You can call me uncle. This way we are like family members. Li Xiandao said with a straight face. Guan saw that he didn't seem to be testing him, so he called him uncle. Li Xiandao smiled and said, to be honest, I have a lot of pawns in the outer sect of Taixuan Sect. I know Li Ya's situation. Guan thought that Li Ya had a bad relationship with his father before, but now it seems that this is not the case. Is there a misunderstanding here? He wanted to ask for Li Ya, but he held back. The emperor in front of him wanted to live forever. Such an emperor must have a complicated attitude towards the prince. Even if he loved the prince, he probably had some fear in his heart. Which prince wanted to be a prince for his whole life? Which prince didn't have a desire for the throne in his heart? Guan was full of emotion. He thought that Li Ya and Li Xuanyu were talented enough before, but until he saw Li Xiandao, he knew why they were so talented. Bloodline inheritance. 230 years old, the 8th level of the transformation realm. He wouldn't break through the transformation realm at the age of more than 100, right? Too outrageous. The most important thing is that this guy has also practiced the secret method of hiding his breath. If Guan did not have the ability to detect his lifespan, he would not be able to see through his true cultivation. Perhaps the court and the world of immortal cultivation could not see through his cultivation, so he could practice steadily until now. Then, Li Xiandao began to ask Guan about the things in the valley, curious about the origin of the spring festival mentioned by those disciples. Guan answered him with the words he used to deal with other people. Li Xiandao became interested in the spring festival and decided to participate today. How could Guan refuse? Half an hour later, the two walked down the attic and prepared for the spring festival with other disciples. The disciples were very happy and laughed continuously, which also infected Li Xiandao. As night fell, Guan took out the homemade firecrackers, and the Xian Valley began to echo with the sound of explosions one after another, deafening. The firelight shone on Li Xiandao's face. He was smiling and even drank with Xiaochuan. It was impossible to associate him with the emperor of the Taixuan dynasty. Tangyu, Su Han and other disciples prepared some programs, including storytelling, sparring, juggling, etc., which made the excitement last until late at night. The next day at noon, Guan sent Li Xiandao away. 2 more years. It's really exciting. Guan thought silently. Li Xiandao said that he would send someone to pick him up to the Medicine Valley in 2 years. He planned to strive for a lifespan of 100,000 years within 2 years, and then break through to the God Transformation Realm. No, to surpass the God Transformation Realm. He was not stronger than Li Xiandao, and he was really uneasy. After all, accompanying the emperor is like accompanying a tiger. What if Li Xiandao wants to harm him one day? Guan looked at the direction where Li Xiandao left, secretly curious. Why did the emperor go to the outer gate alone? Could it be that the person he really visited was Li Xuanyu? Li Ya said that Li Xuandao's favorite child was Li Xuanyu. Guan no longer thought about it, turned around and walked into the valley, preparing to plant some more herbs. Spring went and summer came, and Guan welcomed the age of 34 in the summer. On this day, he bid farewell to Du Yi, who came to ask for medicinal herbs. At the mouth of the valley, Du Yi turned around and said, "You have provided a lot of medicinal herbs over the years. Master Ji Lin is very satisfied with you. After a while, he will send someone to send you foundation building pills to help you reach the foundation building stage as soon as possible. When you become a true outer disciple, he will find a way to let you continue to take over this Medicine Valley." After that, he turned and left, stepping on the sword and leaping over the mountains and forests. Guan shook his head and laughed. When he sent Li Xiandao away at the beginning of the year, Li Xiandao also said something similar. In the future, he must keep a distance from the Ji family, otherwise the Ji family will plot against Taixuan and need his help. Although the sect is strong, the power of the family is immeasurable. In this land, dynasties change, sects are destroyed and new ones rise, but some families can survive, and the Ji family is one of them. Alas! I just want to pick grass and flowers well. Why are there so many people trying to win him over? Guan thought as he walked into the nearby forest. There was a man practicing sword in the forest. It was Su Han. Su Han has now reached the 7th level of Qi training, second only to Guan and Tangyu in the valley. Tangyu practiced leg techniques, while Su Han practiced swordsmanship, but the swordsmanship he usually practiced was taught by Li Ya. so it was not very advanced. Guan watched him practicing swordsmanship from a distance, and hesitated whether to teach him. Xuanhuan was diligent in his work and practiced hard, and Guan could not find any fault with him. No, he was not practicing the 7 swords of the Li family. Looking carefully, the swordsmanship he performed was the first time Guan had seen it. This kid also had an adventure. When did it happen? Guan was secretly curious, and then deliberately stepped on the dead leaves to make a sound. Su Han, who was practicing swordsmanship, noticed Guan's arrival. He stopped immediately and turned to salute Guan. Xiao Han, entering the outer gate depends on cultivation. Why do you practice swordsmanship so hard? Guan asked with a smile. Su Han scratched his head with his left hand and said, I'm not in a hurry to enter the outer sect. I want to practice swordsmanship first. Why do you think so? To enter the outer sect, you have to carry out tasks. If you are not strong enough, you will ruin your future. Su Han's answer made Guan happy. Yes, this boy is very suitable for him. Guan asked curiously, is your swordsmanship inherited from your family? Su Han nodded and said, it's my father's swordsmanship, but it's too profound. Recently, I have barely comprehended it. Your father must be very powerful. Although I don't like to practice swordsmanship, I have seen many exquisite swordsmanship in the outer sect, but none of them are as good as the swordsmanship you just performed. Guan asked curiously. Su Han shook his head and said, my father is a useless person. Since I can remember, he has been blind and has no magic. When I was 7 years old, he died of illness. Later, I found this swordsmanship secret book in his bag. As he said, he took out a sword manual from his arms and handed it directly to Guan. Guan took it and looked at it, raising his eyebrows slightly. Hate Heaven Sword. What a weird name. As soon as he saw this name, Guan immediately wanted to expel Su Han from Xian Valley. This guy obviously has a grudge. Guan simply flipped through it. He was at the 9th level of the nascent soul realm, which was enough to remember everything he saw. However, if he wanted to practice it, it would depend on his own sword comprehension. He returned the sword manual to Su Han and said in a deep voice, this sword technique is indeed exquisite, but its mental method seems a bit sinister. Do you have to practice it? This sword technique requires the sword energy to temper the internal organs, causing the sword practitioner to suffer unimaginable pain, and some of the methods are even invisible to Guan. With his sword attainments, it can be asserted that this sword technique is very evil. Su Han was stunned for a moment and asked, Master, do you think I shouldn't practice? Guan shook his head and said, I just think this sword technique may bring you pain, but I don't know your origins and can't understand your feelings. It's up to you to practice or not. If you don't practice, you can stay in Xian Valley as long as you want. You will always be my disciple. Su Han was moved after hearing this. He stuffed the Hate Heaven sword into his arms and nodded heavily. Guan took out a book from his arms. It was the latest volume of the Investiture of the Gods. It was given to him by Di. Di said that Ji Lin was obsessed with this book, which led to their followers to read it. The book you want. Guan handed the Investiture of the Gods to Su Han and turned away. Su Han held the Investiture of the Gods with a smile on his face. Back in the Medicine Valley, Guan began to observe other chores. First, Liya, then Wu Xian, and then Su Han, all had unusual backgrounds. This Xian Valley is too mysterious. Something is wrong. Half an hour later, Guan walked back to his attic. The other errand disciples could not see any problem for the time being, which made him feel at ease. On second thought, that was right. Those who could join the world of immortal cultivation all had extraordinary backgrounds or experiences. In their eyes, he was the protagonist. Until late at night, Guan quietly came to the Yuanying cave heaven. After playing with Haolong for half an hour, he took out the Tiansu sword and began to practice the Hentian sword. It is better to have many skills than to be weak. First practice it to the attribute panel. For a while, there was a whirring sound under the vine tree. It was the sound of the sword blade swinging. Haolong looked curiously from a few feet away, and Guan's sword practicing figure was reflected in his dragon eyes. In late summer, Guan came to the outer gate city. He first went to the Danyao Hall and handed in a year's harvest of herbs, and then went to the library to hand in his manuscript. Since the success of the investiture of the gods, Elder Lu Chang has attached great importance to him and always receives him alone, fearing that the news will leak out. Lu Chang said frankly that he was afraid that Gu En's reputation would be exposed and he would be abducted by the demons. In that case, the library would lose a lot of spiritual stones, which made Gu En more cautious. After handing over the official business, Gu En went to visit Lu Jiujia. Lu Jiujia was very happy and invited him to find Yilan together. It happened that Yilan was also in the city. Not all outer disciples open caves outside the city. The price required for the construction of caves is expensive. More disciples choose to live in the outer gate and enjoy the spiritual energy of the outer gate. In the courtyard, after the three sat down, Lu Jiujia poured wine for Gu En and said mysteriously, "Something big happened in Taixuan." Chapter 39 Yuanying blocks the way, despicable. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What's the big deal? Gu En asked with a smile. When he came to the outer gate city today, he really felt that something was wrong in the atmosphere, and there was an indescribable sense of tension. Yilan said, "The sect master is fighting for power with a certain elder. Some time ago, the imperial emperor came to Taixuan sect and selected the elder's direct disciple as the national master, enjoying the official position of first-class immortal status, and announced it to the world. This greatly boosted the popularity of the people on the elder's side, and they also spread unfavorable remarks about the sect leader. Lu Jiujia was beaten to the punch by her, with a bit of resentment in his eyes. When she finished speaking, he quickly added, "The sect leader has a domineering style and has offended many elders. In recent years, the territories outside the outer sect have repeatedly experienced casualties of disciples and invasions of demons. Many elders in the sect are dissatisfied with this, and now that the emperor supports it, the enemies of the sect leader will naturally not tolerate it. How can such a fight not lead to chaos?" Gu En asked curiously, "Doesn't the sect leader have absolute power? Isn't he the strongest monk in Taixuan sect?" "Of course not, the sect leader is also jointly elected by the elders, and in Taixuan sect, the strongest person in terms of cultivation is not the sect leader, but the true disciple. It is said that he is the most talented person in Taixuan sect for thousands of years. He goes out to wander around and never returns. Anyway, I have heard a rumor that if he wants to be the sect leader today, he will be the sect leader tomorrow at most." Lu Jiujia replied, talking about the true disciple, his tone became excited. "So powerful. What's his name?" "Ahem, I haven't understood it yet." Lu Jiujia pretended to cough, trying to hide his embarrassment. Yilan rolled her eyes at him, then looked at Gu En and said softly, "I did hear a lot of inside stories in the law enforcement hall. The overt and secret fighting in the main city of the sect has spread to the inner and outer gates. Senior brother, are you in Xianmen? Gu Ke should be careful, those people will do anything to fight for power." Gu En chuckled and said, "That's not true, is it? Is it possible that someone else dares to come and massacre Xuangu and then blame the other person?" As soon as these words came out, Gu En himself panicked. Someone is already raising greedy, angry demons outside the outer gate. What else can't happen? Yilan saw his worry, stretched out her hand to hold his hand, and said comfortingly, "Brother, don't be afraid, I will find a way to persuade the law enforcement hall to deepen the patrol of the medicine valleys in the outer gate." Gu En naturally pulled his hand back. He was only distracted for a moment when she unexpectedly attacked him. Well, actually he saw it, but he was just afraid that he would react too quickly and make his junior brothers and sisters jealous. Lu Jiujia snickered secretly, but Yilan glared at him. "You have to be more careful than me. A power struggle like this is more dangerous than going out to slay demons." Gu En said seriously. Lu Jiujia was very confident and said that it was impossible for him to die. Yilan said that she was in the law enforcement hall and others did not dare to touch her easily. The law enforcement hall oversees all the hall departments. By joining the law enforcement hall, you can gain power over ordinary disciples. However, the training time of the law enforcement hall disciples is not as long as that of ordinary disciples. If anything happens to any hall department, they have to take care of it. Gu En looked at Yilan with emotion in his heart. only a few years after leaving the valley, Yilan has been completely transformed. She is no longer the little girl who followed him. Now she is heroic and reliable. The three of them drank and chatted. Most of the time, Lu Jiujia and Yilan were talking. Through their words, Guan learned a lot about the situation of Taixuan's sect. He was very pleased that the junior brothers and sisters he had trained took care of him, which gave him a sense of accomplishment. In the future, if the disciples of Xian Gu were dispersed in various halls of the outer sect, or even entered the inner sect, wouldn't his hands and eyes be able to reach the sky? Guan got a little excited just thinking about it. 2 hours later, Lu Jiujia left first. Guan declined Yilan's invitation to go to her mansion to taste Liangzhen, and then left the outer city with a reluctant expression. Guan was in a good mood as he stepped on the flying sword and flew into the wind. The sky is getting redder and dusk is approaching. Guan's surface cultivation has reached the 9th level of Qi Lian realm, so his flying speed is not too slow. He admires the undulating mountains and forests along the way. In a blink of an eye, half an hour passed. Suddenly, Guan, who was flying, saw a figure flying out of the forest in front of him, approaching him quickly, and he couldn't help but slow down. I saw an old man in white robes coming with a sword in his hand, holding a wine gourd in his hand. His nose was as red as a jujube, as if he had just been drunk. "My little friend, please stay," that the white-robed old man's voice came, and Guan could feel the man's cultivation aura in the foundation building realm, but to be on the safe side, he still threw away a lifespan test. Lin Futian, first level of nascent soul realm 603/800/840, good guy. Nascent soul realm. Guan secretly scolded the other party for being insidious and actually practicing a secret method to hide his cultivation. The two met in the air soon. Lin Futian had a kind smile on his face and said, "Little friend, I am a disciple of the Outer Law Enforcement Hall, Lin Kuan. I have something to know from you. Demonic spies have been appearing frequently recently. How about we go to the woods and talk?" Guan nodded. If he refused at this time, it probably wouldn't work. It would be better to act by ear. The two quickly landed in the forest, and Guan picked 2 leaves. Lin Futian took a step forward and asked mysteriously, "Little friend, have you ever heard of Su Rui from the Yuanying sect?" Su Rui? That's so familiar. I was the one who killed him. When Su Rui and Cicada wanted to stay in his medicine valley and even injured Leia, how could he forget? Guan pretended to be confused and asked, "I have heard of the Yuanying sect, but who is Su Rui?" Su Rui is a genius of the Yuanying sect, and his father is the deputy leader of the Yuanying sect. He died in this area. Recently, many spies of the Yuanying sect are investigating the cause of his death. Lin Futian stepped forward and said. Guan immediately stepped back and kept a distance from him. Seeing his alert face, Lin Futian grinned. "What? My friend, you don't suspect that I am a spy of the Yuanying sect, do you?" Guan shook his head and said, "I dare not, but I really haven't heard of Su Rui. Since you are from the Law Enforcement Hall, why do you need to ask me?" "Ha ha ha." Lin Futian laughed loudly, and he suddenly waved his sleeves, and the surging spiritual power spread like fog, quickly covering the area of several miles. Guan panicked, raised the sword in his right hand, and looked at him nervously. Lin Futian then opened the wine gourd, and an unpleasant smell of wine overflowed from it. He grinned and said, "Don't be afraid, there are 15 of your fellow disciples here to accompany you." Guan gritted his teeth and asked, "Who are you? What is your origin? Even if I die, can you let me die with a clear mind? Didn't you guess it?" Lin Futian sneered. He raised his hand and grabbed it in the air. A powerful spiritual power bound Guan and pulled him towards him. Guan showed despair on his face, his body soared in the air and flew quickly towards Lin Futian. Lin Futian grabbed him with his left hand, holding the wine gourd in his right hand and pouring it into his mouth. Bang! Guan in the air suddenly burst out with a terrifying momentum, instantly dispersing his spiritual power. Lin Futian's pupils suddenly enlarged, and a leaf was reflected in his pupils. The leaf was surrounded by sharp sword energy, as fast as lightning, and directly pierced through Lin Futian's eyebrows. Blood splashed, and the leaf swept away all the way. Rumble, tall trees were smashed, and dust flew up. Like a huge gray wall that was more than 10 miles long, Lin Futian trembled all over, his face showing disbelief. He said angrily, "You, actually hid your cultivation, despicable. Guan stepped in front of him, put the index and middle fingers of his right hand together, and pressed them against his chest like a sword. Boom! The sword energy burst out, breaking Lin Futian's body in an instant, and dispersing the dust waves behind him. It was domineering and unparalleled. The trees on both sides fell outward, and a gully several miles long appeared. A figure suddenly flew out from the rolling dust. It was a baby, but his face was old and weird. It was Lin Futian's nascent soul. He flew to the horizon at full speed, and suddenly heard a sound of breaking through the air. He turned his head subconsciously and saw a leaf rushing over, directly destroying his nascent soul, and a blood mist bloomed in the air. Guan raised his hand and grabbed his flying sword. He took a step forward, and the sword energy possessed him. He turned into a sword shadow and rushed away, quickly disappearing in the mountains and forests. He did not rush towards Xian Valley, but to another direction. On the way, a line of prompts popped up. You successfully took away 25 years of Lin Futian's nascent soul realm level 1 life. It's a bit short, but there's nothing you can do. Although Lin Futian is in the nascent soul realm, he is only 197 years old at the age of 603. Guan didn't think much about it. He made a big circle and then returned to Xian Valley at the fastest speed. He climbed into the attic lobby through the window. He sat at the table, raised his right hand and grabbed a jar of wine on the wine cabinet. He began to drink it in big gulps. After drinking a sip, he gently put down the jar. His right hand was shaking a little, and his heartbeat was even more intense. Hoo. Guan tried to calm down. It was so damn scary. I met a spy from the magic way when I returned home. Guan was worried that the noise he made just now was too loud, so he decided not to leave the valley for the next month to avoid the limelight. No, it's too dangerous. If someone jumps out of the nascent soul realm to block me today, someone in the spiritualization realm or even a higher realm may appear one day. Guan quickly called up his attribute panel, and looking at his lifespan of more than 91,000 years, his anxiety was relieved a little. The road to immortal cultivation is really full of dangers. An ordinary cultivator at the 9th level of the Qi training realm can be intercepted by a great cultivator at the 1st level of the nascent soul realm. Isn't this scary? Guan thought of the 15 souls in the wine gourd and couldn't help but sympathize with them. Next, he planned to forcibly harvest a wave of herbs and impact his lifespan of 100,000 years to see if he could open a new function, and then he would be the first to Krypton life. Guan took a deep breath and took out the Green Hero's travel notes from his arms to divert his attention. As night fell, the disciples' cheers rang out outside the window. Guan used his spiritual sense to explore and found that Tang Yu and Su Han were sparring again, and the other disciples were watching the fun. If it were usual, he would definitely go down to watch the fun, but he was not in the mood now. He looked at Qingxia Travel seriously. His heart had calmed down, but he was still a little worried. After a while, there was a sound of footsteps, and then the door was pushed open. Zhen Qin walked in quickly, and said, "Master, the eldest brother and the second brother are fighting." Her eyes fell on the cover of Qingxia Travels, and she couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Thanks to Lu Meng Ziyuan for rewarding 500 starting coins. 6,000 words in the new book period is already very fast, and someone actually asked me to put it on the shelves today. I don't know whether to laugh or cry. The new book period needs exposure and accumulation of achievements. After it is put on the shelves, the update will definitely be more than now. Chapter 40, Smell the Flying Leaves Again, 100,000 Years of Life. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Guan closed the Green Hero's Travels and asked calmly, "Don't they often fight?" "Why did they fight?" Zhen Qin retracted her gaze and said anxiously, "Second senior brother performed a set of swordsmanship." Senior brother laughed at his weak swordsmanship, so second senior brother got anxious. He had already stabbed senior brother, but he still refused to give up. Guan stood up immediately after hearing this. The master and disciple went downstairs quickly. At this moment, the crowd watching was no longer cheering, but kept persuading Su Han. Under the night, Su Han's hair was disheveled, like a ghost, swinging his sword wildly. His eyes were actually glowing with blood. Facing him, Tang Yu was very embarrassed. His robe was cut into pieces, and there were 2 shocking wounds on his chest, Blood was pouring down, staining his pants red. Wu Xian and Xuanhuan wanted to step forward to stop him, but Su Han's sword moves were so sharp that they couldn't get close. Seeing Guan coming, the disciples quickly made way. Guan stepped between the two of them in 2 steps. His left hand grabbed Su Han's right wrist and his left arm blocked Tang Yu's legs. Tang Yu was shocked and retreated. He couldn't help but be shocked. Why was the master's arm so hard? He then breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Su Han with fear. Su Han was caught by Guan's wrist and couldn't move. Guan squeezed hard and the sword in his hand fell to the ground with a clang. "Wake up!" Guan shouted in a deep voice. Su Han trembled all over and the bloodthirsty hatred in his eyes began to fade. Wu Xian, who was standing not far away, was secretly shocked. The eldest brother is so fast. Although Guan has reached the 9th level of Qi training, he is still not considered a strong man in their hearts, mainly because Guan often belittles himself. Guan's move just now refreshed Wu Xian's cognition. He suddenly felt that the eldest brother was not simple. Xuanhuan was used to it. Guan had also subdued the crazy Meng Lang in the past. Maybe Guan's spiritual root aptitude is mediocre, but in Xuanhuan's heart, Guan's actual combat ability is very strong. At least he feels very reliable. The other disciples were also shocked by Guan's move. It was the first time they saw Guan's move, and he could easily suppress Tang Yu and Su Han, who were in the 7th level of Qi training. Jin Qin was the first to cheer, breaking the silence, and the others followed. "Master, you are so powerful. Second senior brother, wake up. Master, is second senior brother possessed? It's all the fault of the eldest senior brother. He had to make fun of the second senior brother. I have never seen the second senior brother so angry." The disciples talked in a flurry, and Guan stared at Su Han. Su Han gasped for breath, and his body suddenly collapsed like mud, but his right hand was grabbed by Guan and he could not fall to the ground. He raised his head, looked at Guan weakly, and said weakly, "Master. I." Before he finished speaking, his neck tilted and he fainted directly. Guan asked 2 disciples to help Su Han back to the house, and he turned to look at Tang Yu. Facing the master's gaze, Tang Yu's face flushed. He didn't know how to defend himself, but he felt wronged in his heart. After all, he was injured. "Let's go back to the house to stop the bleeding first," Guan said expressionlessly. When Tang Yu heard this, he bowed and saluted, and then left. Guan looked at the others and said, "Don't you want to disperse? Aren't you going to practice today?" After that, he turned and walked towards the attic. The disciples looked at his back and looked at each other. Although Guan didn't say anything very harsh, they all thought that Guan was angry. Little did they know that Guan was just not in the mood to preach. That night, all the disciples in the valley had their own concerns and it was difficult to calm down. Guan stayed alone in the attic. In the second half of the night, he felt several powerful spiritual consciousnesses passing by. His battle with Lin Futian finally attracted the attention of Taixuan. The next morning, Su Han came to visit Guan to apologize. "What's the point of you apologizing to me? I wasn't the one you hurt." Guan looked at him and said calmly. Su Han gritted his teeth and said, "He was the first to make fun of my poor swordsmanship." Guan asked, "Then have you told him the origin of the swordsmanship?" You and Tang Yu entered the Medicine Valley on the same day. You have the best relationship. You know him well. He is careless, but he is not a bad person." Guan's tone was a little heavy. After all, they have been together for so many years, and he didn't want his apprentice to turn against each other. He didn't forcibly stop Su Han from continuing to practice the Hate Heaven sword. This kind of thing can't be stopped at all. After stopping it, maybe even the relationship between master and apprentice will be gone. Su Han recalled the years of getting along with Tang Yu, and felt guilty. At first, Tang Yu just teased him about his poor swordsmanship. He was already depressed because he had not been able to practice the Hate Heaven sword, so they had an argument. Tang Yu was also irritated and said more and more harsh words, which made him angry and possessed. "Master, I was wrong. I will find the senior brother later." Su Han took a deep breath and said seriously. Guan said, "Don't wait, go now, I have to go to see the herbs." He stood up and walked towards Su Han. The two walked out of the attic one after another. Su Han closed the door at the back. He followed Guan's pace and couldn't help asking, "Master, don't you ask me why I lost my composure last night?" Guan didn't look back and said, "It's probably related to your hate heaven sword. This swordsmanship was passed down to you by your father. Whether to practice it or not, I am not qualified to decide. Think about it yourself. What is the most important thing in your heart?" Su Han slowed down his pace. He stood in front of the stairs and stared at Guan's back. What is the most important thing? Guan didn't have time to worry about the conflicts between his disciples. He had already said what needed to be said. If they didn't get along well, he would let them leave Xuangu and never see each other again. Guan began to check the herbs in each part to see which herbs were close to maturity. He had to save them as soon as possible to have a lifespan of 100,000 years, so he directly harvested some herbs that were about to mature in some years. Of course, Guan did not touch those herbs that were still far from old. He was not so mad as to destroy his heritage. Now he has many channels to collect lifespan, so he is not too panicked. Over the mountain forest, a monk was suspended in the air with a magic weapon. Looking down, there were figures of law enforcement Hall disciples searching for him in the mountain forest, including Yilan. Chu Jingfeng stood on the flying sword, his right sleeve fluttering in the wind, and his whole person had an air of vicissitudes of life, no longer as high-spirited as before. An old man flew over on a gourd. He handed the leaf in his hand to Chu Jingfeng and said, "It should be the hand of Feiye's sword Immortal." The wine soul gourd of Lin Futian, the helmsman of Yuanying Sect, was found nearby. There are 15 pieces in it. The soul of a disciple of Taixuan Sect. Chu Jingfeng took the leaf and looked at it carefully. The surface of the leaf was covered with tiny sword marks. At first glance, they were not visible at all. He pondered, in other words, Feiye's sword Immortal is really our fellow sect. That the old man nodded and said, "That should be the case." The previous attack on Ziwei was probably a factional fight. Judging from his ability to easily kill Lin Futian, if he wanted to kill Ziwei would never survive. Chu Jingfeng was silent. The old man looked at his fluttering right sleeve and said, "Jingfeng, it's time to let go of your worries and take over your arm as soon as possible. Otherwise, if you keep practicing your sword with your left hand, it will be difficult to change your habit in the future." "Why should I take it? Feiye's sword Immortal can use leaves as swords. Why do I have to hold the sword with my right hand?" Chu Jingfeng asked. Hearing this, the old man shook his head and smiled bitterly, no longer trying to persuade. In the mountains and forests, Yilan stood in the ravine. She looked towards the end of the ravine, which seemed to lead to the ends of the world. Her eyes were full of shock. "I heard that the one who took action was Feiye's sword Immortal. This terrifying scene was caused by a leaf." A female disciple came over and said in wonder. Other disciples around him marveled at the power of Feiye's sword Immortal, and Yilan was also fascinated by it. How high must one reach in cultivation to have such terrifying strength? Yilan turned her head and looked in another direction, with worry in her eyes. Since Lin Futian's death, a group of monks have flown over Xuangu every few days. Most of them are at the Foundation establishment level, and Guan can occasionally see Yilan's figure. She didn't come down to visit Guan, as if she was just passing by, but she passed by Xuangu 4 times in a month. How could Guan not know her thoughts? This girl. Guan stood in front of the window sill, looking at the monks retreating to the horizon, feeling very warm in his heart. He brought up his attribute panel and looked at his lifespan of 99,990 years, clenching his hands in his sleeves. It's done. Tonight, he will break through the realm. Because of this month's forced harvest, the lifespan harvest will decrease in the next year, but after another year, it should be able to recover and continue to grow. He also deliberately left space for 10 years of life, waiting to be picked quietly at night. He wants to enjoy the feeling of Kryptonian life. Seeing that it was still early, Guan couldn't sit still, so he went downstairs. When he came to the courtyard, he saw Su Han practicing his sword on the top of the East Mountain from a distance. After the conflict that night, Su Han became withdrawn and others did not dare to disturb him for fear that he would go crazy. The relationship between Tang Yu and Su Han recovered. After learning the origin of the God of Hatred sword, Tang Yu apologized to Su Han, but after that, he practiced even harder. An apology was an apology. He didn't want to lose to Su-han again. After all, he was the senior brother. Guan came to the wooden fence of the park and looked up with a smile on his face. "Master, why are you so happy?" Zhen Qin ran over and asked curiously. Guan rubbed her head and said with a smile, "What? Do you smile less as a teacher?" Zhen Qin laughed and said, "Master, since you are in a good mood today, why not teach me Confirmed kick?" Guan asked in surprise, "Don't you hate sword training and leg training? Why did you change your gender?" "I also want to become a disciple of the law enforcement hall like Uncle Yilan." Zhen Qin clenched her fists and said excitedly, it turned out that Wu Xian and Xiaochuan had also seen Yilan earlier. They expressed emotion to each other, and their words were heard by Zhen Qin who was weeding next to her. Hearing that the Taoist robe Yilan wore belonged to the law enforcement hall, Zhen Qin admired her very much. Guan smiled and said, "Okay, then I'll teach you. Thought it would be better to send this girl away as soon as possible. She always comes to disturb him when he is reading." In this way, Guan began to teach Zhen Qin how to practice Confirmed kick. When late at night fell and all the disciples returned to their houses, Guan secretly left Xian Valley. Before leaving, he went to the park to pick 2 third-level medicinal herbs.